Chapter 21. The mountain range called Bercht was situated in the northern part of the continent, a place that didn't belong to any empire or kingdom. Its altitude was 3,500 meters, and a population of about 1,000 people resided among the peaks. It also served as the home of a group of wizards called the Elders. Bercht was the collective body of the magic schools spread throughout the continent, and the institution that determined the school's actions. They followed the Isle of Wizards' wealth ritual that they adapted, but the summit rarely happened, perhaps only once every few decades. The summit? It was a day in April when the elders felt the need for a summit. It must be held at once. The wizards swiftly gathered at the elders' hall, located at the top of the mountain range shrouded by endless darkness. A devil appeared in the mountain of darkness. We must not forget that magic was initially formed as an occult art to punish the devil. Even though they avoided becoming involved with the secular world, they were forced to make a strict exception to deal with the threat that now loomed over them. Has the directive been written? We had to go to great lengths for the Shinjin, but the attendance of the 12 families has been ascertained. The 12 families, which included the Iliade, Eucline, Bran, Bayorad, Rewaned, and its newest member, the Shinjin, known for their achievements over the past decade, were summoned as per tradition. Being allowed to attend the Bercht conference itself was a great honor for any family. Hence, no one dared refuse the summons. The Iliade and Eucline families have fiercely fought each other in the past. Bercht's decision-maker, D. Zekton, expressed his concern. That happened ages ago. They've already reached some sort of agreement. It's merely superficial. D. Zekton sighed deeply. That's only natural, considering the power their households have. However, Glython has become more dangerous. No, the currents of his rage have calmed down. Iliade's Glython was once an uncontrollable flame. The blazes of his ambition seemed like they had the primal need to burn eternally. D. Zekton still hadn't forgotten how Glython behaved, not wanting to let go of his deep-seated delusion. Does he not have a child who's better than him? She didn't inherit her father's bottomless ambition, and she most certainly wouldn't do anything that would put her in harm's way. That was also true. His ember seemed ready to devour the world. He then was granted a scion that was a far more brilliant spark than himself. If Glython was fire, then Sylvia was the sun. You know what to do. On another note, the Shinjin mages have been asking about the vipers of the Isle of Wizards' wealth. The 12 elders bowed down to D. Zekton's word. Yes, once the Isle has picked out 8 families, I will send you a message. Upon the rise of such a day, Bercht's will was transmitted to the Empire's tower and the mage families. At the same time, all high-level wizards across the continents would begin their journey to Bercht. As a precaution, their messages always included one warning. A fair reminder. Bercht cannot be held liable for the wizard's safety. Its law is nothing but magic. Hence, death amid the mountain ranges will be naturally considered magical. The reason behind the need for it would soon be revealed. About 10 days later, my prized items flooded Routen. As Gainsha advised, I bought 2 premium-quality magical vaults and kept them in separate locations. One in the main building and another in an entirely different building. I also called Professor Relin of the University Tower and the wizards of the security department to renew the mansion's defenses. With my home once again prepared against invasion, no possession of mine should be at risk for theft now. The ones I can personally use. Of the many items, I had 2 artifacts that didn't go immediately into the vault. Both of them were relics, so any wizard would want to have them. Ruperin's ring, rating. Relic, description. An equipment created by one of the very few master craftsmen of their generation, Ruperin. He has infused his blood, sweat, and tears into it. Category. Equipment artifact accessory. Effects. Regulates blood circulation to smoothen blood flow. Increases mana recovery speed, slightly amplifies magical powers. A ring that helps blood circulation and mana restoration. Ancient relic necklace. Rating. Relic. Description. Relic necklace inscribed with ancient runes. Category equipment artifact accessory. Effect store up to 300 mana. A necklace designed for storing mana, comparable to a power bank. After absorbing 300 mana from my body, it could be used as a portable mana source. It was only 300, but mana volume was an extremely important stat in this game. There weren't many items like this either. Because of the limitations of my magical power, I was forced to rely on my Iron Man skill. I couldn't even dream of becoming a knight. From here on out, I decided to start using the two accessories as part of my equipment. Based on their aesthetic sense alone, they looked immensely luxurious. However, the most important item I bought was... I sighed as I looked at the item in question. It was the mysterious metal with a white and blue glow. It looked unattractive because it hadn't been refined yet, but the snowflake obsidian's existence itself was no different from magic. It's not moving. It cost no less than 40 million elnies, but no matter how much I used psychokinesis on it, it wouldn't budge. It wasn't because it hadn't been refined yet, that it was too big, or even that I lacked magic. The problem was that the spell in it was resisting my magic. In its current condition, even after it had been refined, smelted, and forged, I still wouldn't be able to control it even if I spent my entire life trying to. What should I do? The snowflake obsidian was an item too expensive to just serve as a display or decoration, but I couldn't think of a way to awaken it. As I stared at it deep in thought, I suddenly remembered a line from one of the books in the library. Swords need to be tamed, which is why knights must first swing their swords before they can use their fullest potential. This process is called communion. Communion? I had never learned how to use a sword as I was a wizard. However, if taming the sword meant understanding the sword itself, then I gazed into the sword with my understanding and even placed my hands on it just in case my eyes wouldn't be enough. Both heat and cold coursed through me. Those two qualities could never coexist in a practical sense, yet they tickled my palms together. But what I wanted wasn't its contradictory quality, atomic structure, or its value. What I desired was an essential and metaphysical understanding of it, far more important than any of those combined. I needed insights that transcended rationality from my trance of communion. I felt a searing pain pass through my eyes as if electricity pierced through them. Zeeing. The snowflake obsidian scorched my hand, but I continued staring into it as I clutched one of my eyes. I didn't find any changes. However, I felt it with my body. When I checked it with my vision, I felt even more assured, understanding. 0.1% mana. 1,357/3,357 plus 300, 0.1% after consuming 2,000 mana. Considering the daily amount of mana available to me, which was more than 10,000, and my recovery speed, it would take at least a year to fully understand this metal. It might be easier to use upon reaching 40% or 50% understanding, but steel would be the best until then. Did my routine just gain one more task? I deposited the snowflake obsidian into the vault with a bitter smile. Then I wore Ruperin's ring and the ancient relic necklace, immediately noticing a notable change. The aura and color of the accessories that were touching my body changed completely to a vintage style. Aesthetic sense. Rating. Unique. Description. Genius sense in classifying appearance. Has the potential to be well-versed in all artistic knowledge and responds to high-quality artworks. Was that change the effects of aesthetic sense's second description? I thought it was an attribute that was so useless that only prodigy could beat its worthlessness. It wasn't practical, but it wasn't bad to have either. I put on my jacket and prepared to go to work. I remained true to my daily routine as a professor. First, as soon as I arrived at work, I analyzed my research in the lab, allowing the aftermath of morning training to subside. At noon, I went by car to eat at a restaurant. After lunch, I came back to the tower and prepared for my fourth period class. I then thought about alternating Alan's syllabus books, and it was already 5 p.m. before I realized it. Make sure you keep the theories in mind when answering the midterm exam. I sat on the chair and nodded. Today, the outline and composition of the exams and the topics of the students' projects and reports were finalized. The exam's level of difficulty was brutal, maybe too much so. This was fun. Bullying the students was so fun. Imagining the wizards who would suffer from the problems I would present, I felt unnecessarily pleased, and when I saw the notebook on my desk, my pleasure turned into a strange feeling. Schedule notebook to Culeen's itinerary, my schedule. I sighed as I swept my hair back. Ever since last week, there was an event that had been bothering me. 9th of April death anniversary. It wasn't the death anniversary of de Culeen's parents, but de Culeen's fiancée, or rather, his ex-fiancée, Yuli. I wasn't flustered since that event had already been resolved. Some time ago, when I first met Gainshire at the New Year's flower party, she clearly said, "Is it because you're newly engaged?" De Culeen had an ex-fiancée, and I knew the whole out-of-the-game situation all too well. During a vacation's late evening in a world now too far away, when all the company employees were crunching, the Easter eggs were brought up and discussed. Inspired by it, Uara then added a small backstory to de Culeen, saying she had a brilliant Easter egg which turned out to be his first fiancée. After 3 days, perhaps that was the only trace that reminded me of her in this world, those mischievous pranks she left behind as Easter eggs. The things that made her smile so brightly. As I reminisced about her, knock knock, opening the door using psychokinesis, Alan was revealed standing behind it. "Professor, Count Freyden is here, ugh." While introducing the guest, he was pushed aside as a big man came in from behind him. "Oh. I'm sorry. My size is all too large, unfortunately. Are you okay?" "Ah, yes, I'm all right." Alan bowed and headed outside as Zeit looked at him softly from head to toe. "Is that your underling?" I nodded. "He's my assistant professor." Is that so? He seems vague." He muttered strange words with his arms crossed. I looked at the clock, 5:15 in the afternoon. It was still too early for our 7 p.m. appointment. Yet Zeit smiled brightly. "Ah, we're going to a prominent place, you see. I couldn't help myself. I've also been wanting to ride in your car." I knew it. The man wanted a car as a marriage gift. ***, one of the most popular restaurants in the empire, Pon Meshul. It was so famous that even high-ranking nobles found it hard to make reservations. However, we managed to obtain a private room on the 2nd floor. Julie constantly wriggled. She was like a baby, babbling from time to time. Ugh, for her, who had only worn armor before, dresses felt tight around her muscles and were more restraining than handcuffs. The accessories she had to wear were also continuously scratching her body. "Are you okay?" Josephine watched her sister struggle as if she were a cute caterpillar. "Yes, I'm okay," Julie laughed bitterly. "You don't look okay." "I'm fine." Josephine pouted with her hands on her chin and raised an eyebrow. "Liar. I can tolerate it. I'm not talking about your dress or this meeting." "I meant the marriage." "What? You said you didn't want to get married." Her straightforward question left her fumbling for words. "I'm fine." She shook her head with a darkened expression. Josephine laughed. "If you hate it that much, would you like to be taught a way to get out of it?" "What do you mean?" She placed her lips beside Julie's ear, who naively tilted her head. She then whispered in a very small voice, "What if you marry him, then kill him? If you did that, the Ukline family would be yours, too." Listening to her made her feel like a snake's tongue was flicking in her ears, causing goosebumps to rise over her body. Julie's eyes opened wide in shock as she glared at her sister, her face reddening. It was a ludicrous suggestion that she had never even thought about, let alone would dare attempt. "Sister, how could you say that? It's a joke. A joke." Josephine chuckled so hard she had to place her hand on her shoulder for support. "There are some things you shouldn't joke about." Julie pushed her hand away and, finding such retribution lacking, tried to smack Josephine with her fist. However, she couldn't dare hit her, so she floundered around a bit instead. "I'm just messing with my precious little sister, because it's so regrettable to waste your life on such a man." "Don't be too angry." "Shut up. Who in the world would kid about something so serious? That's more akin to profanity." Tilda, I just did." "You, seriously, do you think this is funny?" Clang, clang. Infuriated, Julie slammed the table as her face reddened even deeper, causing Josephine to repeatedly apologize. Not long after, the door of the private room opened. A serene scent immediately permeated through the air, one so sophisticated that it changed the room's atmosphere instantly. After that, the man in question appeared. When Josephine saw him, she let out a ragged sigh, letting the sound out unconsciously in awe. His appearance and style were especially striking today. You must have been stared at on your way here. She smiled at him, but he didn't answer. He just casually looked at the two, nodded, and sat down. Zeit, the one who arranged this whole ordeal, squeezed through the door afterward. He tilted his head when he saw Josephine. You're here too. I styled my little sister, and we came here together. What do you think? Zeit's eyes expressed every drop of his surprise upon seeing Julie's dress. She loved her armor so much that this was the first time he had seen her in a dress in about a decade. Ah, no wonder you look gorgeous. What do you think? Zeit gave Deucalion a proud smile as he looked at him. With Josephine's help, Julie's beauty was indeed on a different level. Julie's my little sister, but even if she weren't, I'd still find her beautiful. Meanwhile, you're the same as usual, but you somehow look cooler today. Deucalion looked at Julie without saying anything, and she looked back at him. She wasn't certain if it was a battle of pride or not, but neither of them turned their eyes away. Across those gazes, Zeit turned sideways and laughed quietly to himself. Chapter 22. I already knew Julie would be at the restaurant I frequently visited, but I didn't expect the person next to her to join us as well. Josephine. In Deucalion's perspective, she belonged to the highest risk group more than any other named. It was the first time we saw each other in person, but I had seen her a few times behind the monitor. I was also familiar with her characteristics. You must have been stared at on your way here. Her presence made me wonder for a moment whether I should sit or not. However, I couldn't just leave abruptly. After thinking about it, I realized it might be better for us to meet now. Josephine was a name that could randomly send an assassin after me, after all. It would be safer to meet with her unexpectedly now than be fatally wounded at a critical moment. I sat down and looked at Julie. Julie looked at me too. There was a hint of embarrassment in her gaze, mixed with a bit of remorse. However, she had nothing to be sorry for when it came to Deucalion. Julie's my little sister, but even if she weren't, I'd still find her beautiful. Meanwhile, you're the same as usual, but you somehow look cooler today. I knew Zeit, entering the room last, was talking, but none of his words reached my ears. All I could do was stare at Julie. What do you think of Julie now? Josephine's question brought me back to my senses. She's beautiful. I felt as if I couldn't take my eyes off of her for a moment. Even if she usually wore armor with no makeup, she was already a matchless lady whose beauty stood out. Today, she was even more beautiful than anyone I had ever seen in this world. Was this the effect of makeup? Ha ha ha, that's right. That's my little sister, Zeit chuckled. Anyway, it's been 3 years since you two were engaged. When would you like to hold the marriage ceremony? He was already holding a knife and a fork, even though there was no appetizer on the table yet. Due to his size, he looked almost like he was about to cut the table up and eat it. He was such an impatient noble. Well, my lord, the adults are talking. Surprised, Julie tried to say something, but Zeit's cauldron lid-like palm held her back. Be quiet. Julie pouted without saying a word. I noticed a faint red current in the air. The villain's fate. I thought it was manifesting through Julie at first, but it didn't take me long to notice it was coming from Josephine, who was smiling at me tenderly while sitting beside her. What do you suggest then, Deucalion? Josephine rephrased Zeit's question. Yes, do tell us what's on your mind. We will follow Professor Deucalion's suggestion. Josephine was the pinnacle of deceit. Her gentle way of speaking perfectly covered any traces of what's within her heart. Even the way she manifested the villain's fate was hard to notice. It could be perceived as mere dust if one didn't look closely. No, to be more precise, it already disappeared. She had a mask that deceived the character's eyes. The door opened, and the chef came in, serving appetizers as he spoke in some alien language. Bitro Sigian. Grucius Kigurn. Zeit skewered a piece with his fork and devoured it in one bite. He overindulged himself with food, but it didn't make him seem any less dignified. On the contrary, there was an elegance in the way he feasted without spilling even crumbs. I intend on leaving that up to Julie. Leaving it up to her? Zeit asked, still gobbling up everything. I chose my words carefully. All the while, my five senses were all focused entirely on Josephine. I knew her dark side, after all. Perhaps I was the only one who did. Inside her beautiful appearance was a monster that devoured even demons. She was a cold, cruel sociopath, having no qualms with whatever means or methods she had to use to achieve her goals. She was a snake wearing the skin of a human, equipped with a strength equivalent to Zeit. Despite the nightmare lurking within her, however, she loved her little sister Julie. That made her an enemy of Deucalion, one fully capable of killing him. Beyond the Empire, the shadows that extended like a spider web all across the dark parts of the continent were hers. It wasn't even a figure of speech. They were hers to control. Why Josephine hadn't yet killed Deucalion and instead just left him be was something I wasn't certain of. Only she and the writer knew. Deucalion, what are you thinking about? I was lost in thought for a moment. This time was especially threatening, considering she still couldn't hold all of her murderous intent, despite her already being so used to hiding her true intentions. I didn't even know how to overcome was an ever-changing, unpredictable being. Her existence itself was truly no different from a shadow, I know. Right now, all I could do was show her my sincerity as Kim Woo-jin, not Deucalion to not cause her beloved Julie any harm. Know what? Zeit replied. Julie, the knight, is not confident in this engagement. If she doesn't want it, then I have no intention of forcing our marriage on her. No intentions of forcing her. Creases formed across Zeit's forehead. I'm the talk of the town for squandering 200 million on Routen overnight. At this point, anyone would blame me if our engagement was broken. On the other hand, wouldn't they think you purposely threw money away for Julie? It's not like that. I shook my head. Don't worry. Even if Julie wants to break up the marriage, the relationship between the Eucline and Freyden households will remain stable. Julie bowed her head. She seemed touched. No, I was wrong. Her hands were shaking. On the contrary, she was trying to soothe her anger. The villain's faintest red dust-like aura appeared around Josephine again before disappearing once more. It was the wrong answer. I quenched my dry mouth with cold water. Oh no, no, no. How can you say break up the marriage so easily? Oh my, how thoughtful of you to think like that. Professor Deucalion, you're a wonderful man, Tilda. Zeit's expression hardened as he shook his head. Josephine was smiling, but she didn't seem like she appreciated my sincerity. The elders of the family will never allow breaking up your marriage for that reason. On the contrary, after showing us your sentiment, we only want you two to be together more. I sighed inwardly. There were many restrictions between a breakup of nobles, especially if the people concerned had thousands of people and millions in money behind them. The elder of Freyden, whom Deucalion had coaxed beforehand, would be flustered, and I already knew how Uriel would react. You mean to tell me you were bullshitting me when you said you wanted to get engaged? Just try breaking up with her. I'm warning you. Take responsibility for everything. Keep the Eucline and Freyden households' relationships stable even after you two have broken up. What if I don't want to? Why should we help them? Don't you know you're supposed to become strangers after you break up? Give me back the 200 million elnis you wasted. She would spout lines like that. My lord. At that time, Julie spoke. Just in time, the main dish steak was served. Can you leave us two alone, please? She looked at me with clear eyes. Sensing her seriousness, Zeit replied, if Deucalion permits. It's okay. Okay, come, Josephine. Yes, Tilda. The two got up from their seats and went outside. Josephine stuck her head in at the door, not even moments after they left. Have a nice talk, Tilda. She then completely left. No, she pretended to leave. I knew her personality. She would have already prepared a wiretap of some kind. Fortunately, Josephine wasn't aware that I had information about her. You've become more intelligent. Julie squirmed first. She bit her lip tightly, intelligent. I nodded my head in agreement. My character hadn't acted as smart before. I learned of Deucalion's one-dimensional wrongdoings, not only through the game, but also from the rumors I collected in this world. Before their formal engagement, he used his family's connections to suggest it, promised all kinds of rights to Freyden, persuaded their family and elders, and made them pressure Julie. She was excluded from the front lines. Using fighting is dangerous as an excuse. Because of her fellow knights' jealousy, and because her family's authority made them feel threatened, she was isolated by the Knight Order. Eventually, Julie quit the Knight Order herself, causing her career to be seriously damaged. At that point, she was shamelessly promised the head position of the Haidcane Knight Order, which the Eucline family owned. When she refused, they spread all sorts of rumors about her. Despite that, Julie refused to give up and made a name for herself using her talent. They talked her into not joining other Knight Orders, interfered in her every endeavor, harassed her, brought her to tears, and angered her to the point she had to ask Josephine for help. Afterward, she was again abused, brought to tears, and humiliated. Every part of their plan was villainous. They tried to break down everything and everyone around Julie to make sure she had no one to lean on but herself, so much so that she mistook the feeling of being protected by someone as affection. I knew. That was why I understood where her hatred for me was coming from. As I cut through the tender steak, I went straight to the point. It looks like you can't break up the marriage as you please. No, we can't do as we please anymore. We've come too far. You should have refused from the start. Julie trembled as she glared at me with angry eyes. You're starting this again. Her voice was shaking. She had been harassed too much that she already seemed to be on the verge of tears. What do you mean? Are you going to put pressure on the new Knight Order? You probably heard it's doing well these days. Fraham was the Knight Order Julie herself and a colleague founded. It had only been a year, but its success story continued with several news companies stating their amazement of Julie's disposition through their articles. Ah, Julie grabbed her fork and stabbed the steak. You've been forcing my hand up until this point. She picked up the whole piece and stuffed it in her mouth. The sauce splattered on her lips, her dress, and on the table, but she paid it no mind. I didn't force you to have this meal. It's Zeit. You forced him to. Julie was eating loudly and messily on purpose, knowing full well I hated that. Oh my, such timid and petty revenge. Surprisingly, it was slowly but surely working. The sauce splattering around was my price to pay. Stop. This is how I normally eat. Ah, it's so delicious. I closed my eyes. The sounds Julie was making were enough to make me squirm, but I regained my composure soon enough, allowing me to look at her straight on once more. Julie, I won't do it anymore. I won't be fooled. I was the one who tied you up so much. Even your family knows what I did. What? Only then did her rowdy fork handling halt. Julie scowled at me with sauce and oil around her mouth. What are you trying to say right now? I'm saying I did something bad. I picked up a napkin. Julie's face was oddly contorted. Not just me, your sister too, and your brother who's been too aggressive. Julie clenched her teeth. No, they are. If they're not aggressive, then why are they trying to stop our breakup? It was already a tight situation for me. I indeed knew the Frayden household more than Julie, a woman who always sacrificed for her family. Of course, because you want to get married. I said I'd follow what you want. Did that sound like a lie, too? Julie closed her mouth and looked at me as if she was trying to see through me. Right, I wasn't truthful. I have no loyalty, and my conviction is not firm. Julie's face was a mixture of surprise and suspicion. Her round eyes and cheeks made her look cute. I'm a completely different person from the painfully honest image that you want. I'm the epitome of a wizard that's not suited for you. D'Quilline's ego would have rejected this facade, which continuously defamed him. He wouldn't have been able to devalue himself even if it meant his death. But the one controlling this body wasn't D'Quilline. But Julie, didn't you want to be a guardian knight? Julie's eyes widened, seemingly surprised that I knew. She looked taken aback, her face filled with shock. She had never revealed that earnest dream of hers to anyone. How did you? To be a guardian knight, you need the consent of your family, but your family will probably interfere. No, they won't. It's not like that. My family. To be a guardian knight, you have to leave your family. You know that too. That's why you've been hiding this dream of yours. The guardian knight was the pinnacle of knighthood. It was the highest honor anyone in their profession could attain, for they were the Imperial's first sword. But a guardian knight had no family. They could get married, but they couldn't belong to any family. They were a warrior that only protected the Empire. The problem was that, although it was the peak of glory for all knights, it was nothing but an honorary position for a family. Protecting the empire meant one shouldn't be involved in disputes between families and territories. They wouldn't even have a political right or political value, for that matter. That opposed the Freyden family's strong ambitions in the political world. Right, this is good. I smiled a little as I thought of something good. Let's keep the engagement, but let's not get married. I sincerely want to let you go, but I can't with our current circumstance, so use my name as a shield if you want to. If you're with me and our relationship looks harmonious, they wouldn't hinder you. Until then, I will keep the engagement too and wait. I don't even have a suitable partner yet anyway. I added a mischievous comment as a joke. Also, just in case, if you ever change your mind over time, only then did Julie's face become serious. What are you up to? Why are you saying that now? I'm not up to anything. I can even take an oath if you want to. She was once again shocked by my words. There's no need for that. I don't want any promises from you. It's just, I'm curious about what you want. If it's me, my body, or anything about me, I will never give it to you. A small flush rose on Julie's cheeks. I knew very well what she's concerned about. What I want. I didn't want anything. I just wanted to spend time with her like this and break up the marriage. I didn't want her to be used to kill me or those around me. But if she wanted to doubt my sincerity, it was only proper for me to give her a suitable answer. I'm not sure. I looked at Julie, finding her fidgeting nervously. Belatedly, I realized that the restaurant had gone extremely quiet. No noise, no disturbance. Just the sound of Julie gulping, swallowing anxiously. I also noticed the faint shadow that was hiding within the room and conveying our conversation. Well, for Josephine, who was eavesdropping on our conversation, I prepared a line. Right, this is good. My actions shouldn't be mistaken, however. This was just a play to con Josephine to eliminate the death variable coming from her. It was nothing more than that. Once a day. It was certainly nothing more than that. My voice was strangely filled with seriousness. I stroked my chin and thought about the reason. No, once a week. Surprisingly, I felt like I could be at ease in front of Julie. I could laugh, feel comfortable, and be a little bit disorganized. What was the reason? It was simple. If you don't have the time, then once a month at least, since once a year is too much. Dechilline seriously loved this woman so much that his affection remained a part of his personality. Smile for me. That's all I want. I said with a soft smile. My words were followed by silence. Julie didn't say anything. She just blinked. After a while, thoughts seemingly finally emerged from her suddenly vacant mind, allowing her to naively ask me a question. T that. W-H, huh? S-H mile? It wasn't even a question. The words that flowed through Julie's lips made her sound like an idiot. I found the crack in her voice at the end cute, though. What do you mean? Julie only slightly moved her lips, then lowered her head. Her hair ruffled as if there was static electricity coming from somewhere. Her honest response resembled that of a surprised animal, which made her even more adorable. However, there was no agreement amid our silence. No affection either. It was just frigid and filled with burdens. I paid no attention to it, but I sighed unconsciously. Julie reacted to my sigh. Her head, which was lowered, trembled. I gave her a napkin. She raised her gaze and quietly wiped off her mouth with it. Ha, I just laughed, causing her to scrunch her forehead and grumble. What are you laughing at? I won't be fooled. It doesn't matter whether you believe me or not, for as long as you do as you please. I will do exactly as I told you. She wouldn't be fooled no matter what I told her. She would never be fooled. Julie muttered that to herself. After that, the only sound left was the dishes clattering as they were transported all over the restaurant. No, there was one more. The villain's fate. You have overcome a death flag. Acquired reward. Store currency +2 finally. My store currency balance exceeded 10-1, Chapter 23. HNNNGGG. With one of her hands cupping her chin as she eavesdropped on our conversation, she tapped her cheek with her index finger. She looked apoplectic, but in the end, she laughed a little for sulking and being aggressive earlier. One smile a month was the only price for using the name of Eucline's great noble. Her fingers curled out of cringe, but Dechilline sounded honest, making the scene not entirely bad. However, Julie couldn't even answer back, causing her older sister unbearable frustration. If it were her, she would have already caused minds to explode. Let's wait a little longer. Josephine wanted to kill him. She waited for Julie to request having him killed herself, but she was such a nice kid that she couldn't even imagine her saying that. Hence, as her older sister, she couldn't stop herself from acting any longer. Of course. However, the sincerity de Culleen displayed today was passable. Josephine could differentiate the color of voices apart depending on their intentions. He definitely wasn't lying when he said he had no intentions of forcing their marriage onto Julie. She decided to let it slide this time and put it off for a while. Brother, what do you think of de Culleen? Zeit yawned on the table on the first floor, then raised his eyebrows as he replied with a question of his own. What about you? What do you think of him? I haven't thought about it. I only follow Julie's wishes. You. Zeit's expression hardened as he massaged his temples a few times and swept his hair back. Josephine, in chess, the king can't move like the queen, the knights, or the pawns. I would be really disappointed if it were revealed that what I thought was a queen was a knight all along. Zeit wasn't keen on marrying Julie off to de Culleen from the start. But de Culleen isn't just a piece. He's the chessboard himself. He might have some cracks, but that doesn't mean pieces can't stand on him. Go on. Zeit looked at the window of the restaurant. The embers of war constantly blazed and raged in his eyes. I haven't forgotten father's death yet, Josephine. Zeit clenched his teeth. At that moment, his terrifying presence weighed down the whole place so much that the nobles at the restaurant started coughing without knowing why. Father was worth more than all those fucking bastards behind their desks put together, yet they treated the knight's honor as nothing more than a mana stone. Josephine just nodded quietly. Zeit, in times like this, was scary even for her. Center, Josephine. They're the center. We were at the border and had no connections to even be invited to participate in a game of chess. Margrave Freyden, defending the northwest part of the empire that they managed to connect with by annihilating everything on their path, was their father's last will. However, upon suffering a defeat, they also lost the head of their household. I won't allow a repetition of the past. Julie knows that too. Yes, I do as well. The truth was Josephine changed into who she was now when her father died. Since the one lined up to succeed the throne was Zeit, and there was no way for her to kill him, she gave up on the position and kept her distance from it. She was the type to lose interest in things she couldn't have, after all. There are people out there whose deaths wouldn't feel satisfying even if they died having their skin and bones torn apart and shredded. I'll surely rip off his limbs one day, cut them into small pieces and feed them to the dogs. Josephine shook her head. They were from the same family, but Zeit was too savage, which worried her. Zeit was fearsome, but if Julie ever decided to leave, Josephine swore she'd be wishing her the best of luck. If ever that day came, she hoped Julie would be much stronger than Zeit by then so she could defeat him until he was rendered powerless. In doing so, she'd be able to soar gloriously above anyone else. As if on cue, her little sister came down to the first floor, and next to her was de Culleen. "Oh, Hotilda, have you finished talking, Professor?" Zeit's expression changed as soon as he saw him. The air between Julie and de Culleen was somewhat awkward, but it wasn't as bad as before. "Ha ha, well, it seems like your talk has gone well at the very least." It did. De Culleen nodded in agreement. Zeit patted Julie's shoulder with satisfaction. "Then let's go have a drink." The four of them left the restaurant together. De Culleen intentionally walked slowly, and the three Freydens naturally took the lead. "The food was good, right, Julie? We ate outside while you two were talking." "The steak was delicious. I don't know, stop talking to me." Why, Tilda, you're making your sister sad. Why are you acting as if you don't know?" "What is it? Are we fighting again? Did we have a conflict when choosing your dress?" Looking from afar, they looked like a harmonious family bickering with each other. "I will be going back now. I have business to attend to at the tower." De Culleen stopped in his tracks and bowed gracefully. Already. Let's at least have a drink." Zeit said, but Josephine stopped him from insisting any further, mouthing the words death anniversary. Noticing it, Julie also began to look at de Culleen with a strange expression. "Ah, I see. Be careful on your way. I hope we can get together like this some other time." "I hope so, too." Eventually, Dekilleen went on a different direction from them. Early in the morning of the following day, boom, the chair that was supposed to float lightly, boisterously shot up. As it was about to hit the ceiling, I swiftly manipulated it through psychokinesis, allowing it to have a safe landing as it swayed softly in the wind. I can't get used to this. Mana quality reinforcement, Stage 1, has been applied. You can now control your magic more gently. Mana quality reinforcement. It allowed the mana inside my body to be refined in a purer manner. Once the circulation of my mana had become smoother, my magic would produce a more superior output. In that regard, the force of my psychokinesis, which my whole body had magically memorized, would be amplified by at least 25%. However, it was inconvenient to adapt to it from the beginning again. I'll move on to my next routine for now. The time had come to memorize beginner psychokinesis again. My psychokinesis was just a mixture of its basic and beginner versions right now, but if I worked on it for just a week, I could expect a dramatic improvement in its beginner version. Whoosh, at that moment, the door of the separate building abruptly opened. What? I definitely told everyone not to enter it without permission. Who would dare? What are you doing? It's just me. Uriel, as soon as she saw me, she bewilderedly twisted her lips as if she became a peeper. Why don't you wear some clothes first? I heard you were working out these days, but you're starting to look like an exhibitionist. Why did you even take them off in the first place? As she spoke, I noticed the parcel in her hands, to which the system immediately reacted. Main quest, Burkt Summon, take this. They're holding a summoning conference at Burkt in about 15 years. I took it using psychokinesis, then read it. What was written in it was nothing special. All it stated was that the Eucline family was being summoned and that we were responsible for our own safety. No, more importantly, have you been tortured? Do you have a deadly disease? Why do you look really dirty? Uriel frowned as she examined me. As she said, my whole body was covered with wounds and there were bloodstains all over. It's nothing. I wiped myself using cleanse, asking her a question as I did so. Did you come here just to deliver this parchment yourself? No. I also have things to do here, so I'll be here until tomorrow. Uriel shrugged and answered begrudgingly, though she looked shy for some reason. Ah, that's right. I'll be sleeping in the room I used when I entered college, so don't even think about going in it. Make it quick. Okay, you don't pay any attention to what I say at all. No, actually, it seems you do pay attention, tilde boo hoo hoo tilde. Uriel jeered and went outside. Give me food. I immediately heard her voice shouting to her attendant. Tomorrow. Uriel would be staying here until tomorrow, and today was the death anniversary of my ex-fiancé. I doubted it was just a coincidence. **CMRC. Common Magic Research Club. Efferin smirked as she looked at the doorplate hanging in the clubroom. The first C of the CMRC was a wordplay around the word common and commoner. Ah, why do I find this funny? PFFFT. She was forcing herself to hold back her laughter when the door suddenly opened. Oh my God. Ah, Efferin, you're finally here. Come in. Julia grabbed her wrist and dragged her inside. Oh, Efferin's here. Hi. Do you want to play cards? There were only 7 members in total in their club, which was way less than they expected, but she liked the fact that this minority depended on her as the elite. What do you think? It's spacious, isn't it? Julia twirled in the middle of the club room. Yeah, it is. It was much bigger than she expected. Rather, it was about the same size as the house she lived in before. Efferin trudged along and sat on the sofa, immediately feeling its softness as her buttocks pressed on it firmly. It returned to its original shape in no time as soon as she stood, too. She repeatedly sat on it and stood up and even pressed onto it a little harder, but it coped without problems. Sure enough, it was the best sofa she had ever sat on so far. Efferin stealthily laid across it while nobody was watching. Ha. Letting out a yawn, she proceeded to ask a question. What was the purpose of this club, Julia? Gaining a practical understanding of magic and research. If we do well with this, we can go on a field trip to the Isle of Wizards' Wealth. Isle of Wizards' Wealth. The entrance ticket to it was worth 10,000 elnies, but it was an island that wizards had to visit despite the price. There was a promotion test going on there right now. No entrance fees? FRN asked about the existence of possible expenses first. The 100,000 Elnis support they got was quickly decreasing since the price of the stationaries and magic books they needed wasn't laughable. They were forced to keep a tight watch on their budget. I shouldn't have eaten a rohawk boar last week. I thought they were going to give me a discount since I'm their daughter's friend, but they treated me so coldly instead. Of course, it's free. Whoa, I mean, I see. If so, then it wouldn't be that bad to think of club activities. Ferret raised a question. Don't we need permission from our class advisor for that, though? FRN listened attentively while pretending she wasn't. Julia, having thought it over, finally answered. Wouldn't they agree if FRN's the one who asked? What are you talking about? Why should I be the one to do it? Professor de Killeen doesn't think too bad of you. According to rumors going around these days, you're the only one he favors. Her face swiftly reddened. She didn't even know such a dirty rumor existed. That's insane. Why would they think anyone would do that? Have they lost their minds while studying for the exams? They just can't find any other explanation. You were honestly also the one who asked for this club, too. FRN bit her lower lip without saying a word. Why was de Killeen being so nice to her? And why was she pathetically hoping that was the case? She thought about it in great detail. However, due to the problem's difficulty, she couldn't think of anything else other than the lines of she was pitiful, at least for now. What's your relationship, Tilda? SHH. What relationship? We're just... FRN scratched the back of her neck. For her, de Killeen was a wall she had to jump over. He was her first goal and the reason why she became a wizard, after all. She tried to surpass him without disregarding modesty and humility. But if she said it like that, it would sound almost pathetic. Hence, she gave a slightly twisted answer. We're rivals. PFFFT? The people in the room started sneering and chuckling. Her words even caused Julia to spit out the water she was drinking. That's a good joke, FRN. I'm not joking. Ha 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 ha, the way you look so serious makes it even funnier. Clang, the door suddenly bent as if it had just been smashed, and a pot-like person came in panting. You guys, what is this? Relin yelled without any explanation. Surprised, the members hid behind FRN. What the hell is this club? FRN felt nervous, but she bravely stepped forward. She had already experienced such opposition anyway. We made and submitted a club establishment plan, and we received permission to proceed with it. Hence, this club's officially established. What? Who in the world gave you permission? No, wait. Now that I got a closer look at you, aren't you that beggar who received disciplinary action? She was called a beggar once more, causing her to glare at Relin. Was it such a buzzword among the professors in the tower? Ho, look at this cocky bastard. How dare you glare at a professor? Lower your gaze, you disrespectful jerk. Relin's face turned red. Behind the open door, his noble-blooded colleagues were grinning. She immediately understood the situation. They were the ones who told him. The founding of a club requires permission from a class advisor. If you're so confident, then tell me the name of the person that gave you their permission. Tell me. FRN bit her lower lip as he oppressed her. When the club was being formed, he definitely told her not to bother him. Ha. I understand now. You've been deceiving us all along. Such actions are enough grounds for expulsion. Even if you weren't, you clearly resisted the will of a professor. I shall make such knowledge known in the presence of the one who allowed the creation of this club. Relin had concluded that even if FRN were telling the truth, the professor they joined hands with would only have a few years here, which would explain why they didn't know anything. Behaving according to that judgment, he became fully capable of confidently demanding the advisor's name. Now tell me, who is it? Say it, I order you to tell me. The more FRN hesitated, the more ferocious Relin became. Nobles continued to gather in the corridor to insult and laugh at the club founded by commoners. It would be best for you to tell me before I go looking for them myself. It's me. What kind of guy? Relin froze as soon as he turned around. Like a criminal caught in the act of committing a crime, he blankly tilted his head and wore a naive expression. I heard you've been looking for me, Professor Relin. De Killeen. WY is senior professor. Ooh, huh. Speak, Professor Relin. Dechilin approached Relin closely and looked down at him, the difference in their heights creating the perfect scene. "Go ahead and tell me what you were complaining about. I don't have all day." "Ah, Senior Professor Dechilin, this club." "Yes, I was the one who gave them permission." "Ah, I see, but why? Do I need a reason? Should I have asked permission from you?" His eyes kept gazing in different directions, showing his confusion. The corners of Dechilin's lips twisted upwards. "Continue what you were saying." That." Breathing heavily, he desperately looked for a way out. His brain had been turned into a mess, and his body was beginning to tremble due to the lack of an escape route. "Isn't their room too restricting?" Pointing to the interior of the clubroom, he barked. "We are wizards of the majestic Imperial University Tower. Why weren't they provided with promising equipment? This place is too cramped for club activities as well. Even the furniture given to them wasn't of the best quality. I just couldn't help but feel infuriated because of such details. Ha ha ha." Relin sighed deeply after finishing his excuse, then immediately smiled brightly. "I'll take responsibility and give them something better." As expected of Professor Relin, who's always so kind and thoughtful. Dechilin calmly nodded. "Relin, kind, nonsense. Well, I have a lecture that I need to teach, so ha ha ha." Relin left with a big smile, but the wizards in the hallway didn't seem to want to disperse. Dechilin scowled at the crowd, more specifically at the group who urged Relin. He knew of them. Beck, Isaiah, Jupern. "You worthless cockroaches are always doing something a cockroach would do." His blunt and gelid warning caused them to flinch and hide swiftly, truly like cockroaches. Dechilin looked at the members of the CMRC afterward, then turned his gaze to the club room's interior. It does look cheap. That was all. Dechilin walked off the corridor like he was in a photo shoot. Wow. Ferret's legs gave out and he collapsed on the sofa. Chills clawed through their bodies. Recently, there had been rumors about Dechilin's performance lacking as the senior professor of the tower, but the people who had been saying that clearly didn't know anything. Upon meeting him face to face, one would immediately feel pressure heavy enough to prove to them that those rumors were nothing but a bunch of nonsense. "Are you in a bad mood today, Professor? You're scarier than usual." "SH." Julia put her fingers on her lips at Ferret's words. She then whispered in a small voice, "It's her death anniversary today." "Death anniversary?" Ferret asked back in surprise. Ephraim's eyes opened wide without saying anything. It was something she didn't know. "Oh, make sure you don't say those words to Professor Dechilin. If you mention it by mistake, your eyes will never open again. It's extremely forbidden to utter that line in front of him." Julia intentionally spoke frighteningly. "PFFT." She found even her own words funny. Ephraim, forcing a smile, managed her expressions. "Death anniversary, huh? Interesting. I didn't think he had someone he liked." Julia tilted her head. Dechilin's bereavement might not be known, but his relationship with his current fiancée, Julie, was widely spread throughout the lands. "Do you know who he liked?" She didn't know if Ephraim was being sarcastic or serious. "Hey, stop acting so crazy." Looking at the Ouija board, Rondo's eyes widened as he grabbed his hair in shock, causing Ephraim and Julia's worry to grow. "Why?" Professor Dechilin just bombarded us with homework. "What?" Julia, Ephraim, and Rondo all applied for Dechilin's lecture, which meant they shared the same responsibilities. Huddling together, they looked at the Ouija board. On it was a list of tasks prepared by their professor. Conduct a magical study based on pure elements combined with 3 or more attributes. Create a research on the theory of magic's density and concentration. Research about the quality of mana. Ah, wait, what is this? Ephraim felt a dizzying shock. Chapter 24. The Knights of the Continent were divided into 3 main groups, the first of which was the National Order of Knights of the Imperial Family or Royal Family. The National Order of Knights was a colossal organization. It didn't only have knights. University graduate wizards and dungeon researchers formed most of its personnel. The knights belonging to this group were called the nation's executives during emergencies, which was why only the highest level of talent among the cadets in the Knight Academy could join. The second was the Knight Orders managed by families. Of course, unless they had a large territory, they wouldn't even be able to dream of running a Knight Order. Only families with vast domains with a high possibility of forming multiple dungeons could manage such a division. Among them, the Eucline household's Haidcane Knights were most preferred by the Knight Academy cadets due to its special geographical conditions and the fact that they'd be stationed in a major city. Finally, the private knights. More than half of the 108 knights of the kingdom were private knights. If most national and familial knights were connected to their region, private knights usually stayed in major cities and went on trips 2 to 3 times a month. They carried out local duties such as suppressing evil, dungeon raids, and other such tasks, earning them plenty of money from loot and donations. However, since the conditions for establishing a knight order were very strict and complex, forming a new one only happened once or twice a year. What a relief! Hence, a group of private knights became affiliated with Freyden's main building instead. Julie sighed in relief as she looked at the book of accounts, finding a surplus in the first half of this year. Good luck seemed to have finally caught up to her, considering how much evil they had suppressed by attacking villages and the number of dungeons they had successfully raided. That's right. We just have to work this hard in the future as well. Julie leaned back in her chair and enjoyed her listless happiness. Knock, knock, Commander Julie. Rockfell, Julie's senior knight and the current vice-captain of Freyham, opened the door. Yes, Lord Rockfell, what's going on? A company in Brecht is asking for an escort on the express train. He fiddled with his scruffy beard and held out a document. Are you talking about the Bercht summit? Yes. Private knights sometimes received missions more suited for adventurers. However, the credibility required by knights was different from adventure teams. The knights only accepted tasks from verified organizations or the nation itself if it served the public interest. It's been 15 years since Bercht's last summons. I didn't think we'd receive a request. The Bercht Express train. It was a magically engineered train that passed through the edge of the mountains and served as the only means of transportation that could bring people close to the summit of Bercht's mountain range. I don't know even why this suddenly came to us. Rockfell sounded repulsed. It wasn't Achillene's fault, but since he was going to attend the conference as well, her knights chatted as if it was anyway. It's fine. You can accept the request. What? Rockfell's eyes widened, and Julie simply shook her head in reply. Is it really fine? Veron said he wanted to do it, but... Veron? Julie's tone sounded stern, unbending. In public, she was known to be a firm and inflexible boss. Yes, the duty came designating him. He has distinguished himself these days as a VIP escort. Veron was a commoner who hadn't even gone to university. However, with his knightly mentality and tremendous efforts, he had reached the same caliber as the knights from the imperial family. He had the tendency to meditate alone most times, but he showed great courage and care for his colleagues in the Graken dungeon. Julie witnessed his feats in person. That's good then. He'll do a great job. I authorize you to proceed. Veron was the most trusted knight in Freyham, even with Julie included. Even the meticulous Zeit complimented him, saying, he smells of the old school knights, which is very rare these days. But will it be okay? Yes. Really? Veron has been raised riding in our coattails. Lord Rockfell, if you doubt me further, you'll soon incur my wrath. Julie's eyes narrowed. She couldn't stand him asking if it was okay despite her already saying multiple times that it would be. Don't you know it just as well as I do? Express train escort missions are one of the hardest there is. If Veron does well, it will be beneficial for our Knight Order's reputation and, of course, his career. Yes, I know, but... Rockfell thought quietly, no way, did she make up with Achilline? Was it yesterday that I heard they held a meeting? No, it simply can't be possible. Stop thinking about weird things. Julie, glancing right through him, cut his thoughts off completely. Ah, yes, ahem. By the way, Commander, what are you doing today? I have to stop by somewhere today. Well, I was thinking of a company dinner, but if you have something to do, then it can't be helped. I'll be on my way. Rockfell left the room, scratching the back of his neck. Julie sighed and peeked under her desk. At her feet was a bouquet that she was going to give as a gift to someone. She had never seen that person's face or even knew their name, but she bought it anyway, thinking it was only morally right to show her face at least once. I still can't believe it. She didn't trust Dikilin at all. But if he really kept his word and changed like that, then, one day, if he confessed his sins and apologized. Julie looked around but found no mirror. She hadn't paid attention to her appearance up until now. For lack of anything more effective, she used the nameplate on top of her desk, which, albeit only slightly, reflected her beauty. Julie puffed up her cheeks once and smiled. The corners of her lips trembled as she stretched them. It was awkward. But then again, she hadn't enjoyed a good laugh in almost 3 years. "Ah, by the way, Commander," Rockfell came in once more. Julie, smiling strangely at the nameplate, glanced up at him. After a brief moment of staring each other down, Rockfell hastily left without a word. Julie put the nameplate down gently, and with her arms crossed, thought calmly as if nothing happened. Express train escort missions were great opportunities. If Veron could protect it properly, he'd be able to make his abilities known. If he ever were scouted by the Imperial family knights, she intended to let him go. Knock, knock. This time with a proper knock, Rockfell came back in. "Commander, I have one more thing to report. You may proceed." Rockfell spoke as if nothing had happened, and Julie replied nonchalantly, but their faces both burned red. Asterisk, asterisk. The graveyard's atmosphere unexpectedly reminded me of old half-forgotten sentiments, despite it just being a grass field with tombstones. The wind caressing through me felt like someone's hand, and the sound of bugs in the distance sounded like cries from a far-off world. I came to this place with one emotion in my heart: solitude. Yet as I walked down the street, my eyes caught on the grave of Dikilin's deceased fiancée. I didn't know what her name was. However, considering his personality, I thought she would stand out. I stepped on the grass as my eyes darted over the graves. Fancy tombs, simple copper plates, a well-maintained headstone, tombstones buried behind vines. It didn't matter where my eyes landed. I would always find the story of someone long gone. The sunset glow slowly fell as dusk settled, creating an orange-tinged sky. As expected, Uriel came and left. A newly placed bouquet stood out, carrying a certain scent that reminded me of the morning dew at the top of mountains. It was Uriel's perfume. I stood in front of the headstone holding a bouquet with a bitter smile, water droplets hitting the ground around me. Why was the rain falling this late in the afternoon? I looked at the name engraved on the tiny tombstone for quite some time. I couldn't bring myself to drag my gaze away from it. Gosh, should I say extraordinary or too much? I just thought it was aggravating. Why? The emotions I felt weren't Dikilin's. It wasn't anyone else's but mine. The name caused my heart to shake, sending tremors coursing through my whole body. I felt pain similar to my flesh being scraped out as my breath caught, almost as if my air passages were being crushed, all because of the name engraved on the tombstone. You are a von Vergis Mainished. The person who's always grateful to you. Perhaps it was one of her Easter eggs. Just like Kim Woo-jin was the model for Dikilin, she snuck her name in secretly. I was dumbfounded. It was strange. I was angry, yet at the same time I felt curious. Why in the world did she give her name to Dikilin's deceased fiancé? What was she even grateful to me for? Thanks. Was this before we broke up? I tried to mutter a joke, but my voice didn't sound as steady as I hoped it would be. I couldn't stop shaking. I could hear her whispering into my ear, drawing out the memories of days gone forever. When I closed my eyes, they came alive as if they just happened yesterday. I was reminded of her losing her family, her timid smiles and the way she praised my paintings, how she wore my blue coat on a winter night. How she often took me in her arms and told me she loved me, picked me up whenever I fell, and cried, grew angry and smiled together with me for 7 years. Even now, as I thought about her, with my chest shaking, she felt like a late snowfall. No, she was like snow that had piled up for a while, covering my heart entirely. I knelt, took off my gloves and wiped the moisture off of the tombstone, allowing her name to come into view more distinctly. She wouldn't know. It was just her name carved there like a cruel joke. The weight was too much for me to handle. I was out of breath and my vision blurred. I had never felt like this before. Now, as Kim Woo-jai and not as Dikilin, I still loved her. At that moment, I heard the sharp sound of leaves rustling and cracking behind me. I came to my senses and quickly stood, teardrops flowing down my cheek. My hair was still messy and poking in around my eyes, but I had to find out who the person approaching me was. When I turned around, I saw someone looking at me. You. I instinctively frowned. She just stood there in silence, shock visible on her face. I came back to the world feeling more embarrassed than I had ever felt before. Chapter 25. 2 hours ago, Sylvia left at 7 p.m., taking the car with her. She carried a pile of notes, flowers, and a pen, but she didn't feel very good. Sitting quietly in the back seat, she murmured to herself, "Why did he give so many assignments so indifferently?" Even though there was a condition that they only had to do 2 out of the 3 activities, and he didn't demand high-quality work as he usually did, they couldn't just meet the bare minimum since it would only be equivalent to 5 credits. We've arrived. She had reached her destination while worrying about the assignments. The evening air that greeted her was chilly. The sun was setting on the horizon to the west, scattering orange light throughout the sky. It suited her destination. Sylvia walked with the flowers in hand, her elegant shoes clinking quietly on the neatly polished road. Waiting for her at her destination was a tombstone adorned with bouquets. Sierra von Elimin, Iliad proud wizard, wife of Glython, and the mother of Sylvia, a lovely daughter. The place where her mother slept eternally. Her mother wanted to be buried in her hometown, and Sylvia followed her footsteps to the institution. "I'm here." Sylvia knelt as she laid the flowers carefully atop the tombstone. "Today at the holy ground, my little brother had his aptitude test." It had been 5 years since her father remarried. Her little brother, who suddenly popped into her life, had just turned 4. "My brother has no talent for magic. He also looks like a potato, a roasted one at that. I don't think he's fully developed yet. No, maybe he was born lacking something." Today's complaints gently continued. "Professor de Killeen is no less than a villain. He seems to think the only responsibility I have is his lectures." She could no longer remember her mother's voice. Even her sorrow towards her mother's fate felt a little vague. But even so, once a month, a special day came when Sylvia, the girl who normally didn't talk, told her mom stories about her life. Today's excuse was de Killeen's bombardment of assignments, but whatever it was, she felt much lighter after she let it out here. "I'll get going then. Take care." Sylvia moved back to her feet, her knees aching, and turned around without hesitation to leave the cemetery, only to stumble upon an unexpected sight. Under the dim moonlight stood a person she never expected to meet in such a place. De Killeen. The very being who filled her with stress today now stood not too far away from her, staring at a tombstone in deep silence. One more presence caught her attention. Standing near him was a beautifully armored knight with hair so white it seemed to banish the very darkness around her. She thought they came together, but soon realized that wasn't the case. The knight watched de Killeen's back from a distance, positioning herself at an angle where he couldn't see her. De Killeen was also too focused on the grave before him to notice her. For a while, it looked like he was motionlessly reading the name on it, lost in the old memories it conjured forth. Not long after, he fell on one knee and swept his bare hand gently across the tombstone. His eyes, still staring at it, soon went blank, his empty pupils reflecting the moonlight. Tears gently rolled down his cheeks. Sylvia, experiencing the biggest surprise of the year, unknowingly gasped and stepped back, causing her to step on dry leaves. De Killeen flinched and immediately sprang up, glaring at her with reddened eyes. "You! I didn't mean to intrude." Sylvia spoke as plainly as ever. Unconsciously, she looked toward where the white-haired knight was standing, but she wasn't there anymore, almost as if she disappeared into thin air. He followed her gaze. "Who else was here?" She shook her head, keeping her lips sealed tightly. "No one." He then closed his eyes and exhaled deeply. "Ha!" Sylvia was worried about being scolded, but de Killeen was rather grateful. Thanks to her, he was able to escape the current of his emotions, whose waves raged far stronger than any storm. Without any warning, it swallowed him in seconds. If he had been caught any deeper, he definitely would have been lost, adrift. "I see. You may go back now." He walked in the opposite direction of the entrance. Sylvia hesitated, but she decided to walk with him instead, albeit not knowing where he was going. "Don't be mad." she anxiously uttered, but there was no response. He simply kept walking, heading ever deeper into the cemetery. Sylvia grew increasingly uneasy. "I won't tell anyone what I saw today." He was still silent. She thought of running away now, but she wouldn't know what to do if he punished her with disciplinary action because of it. She wasn't even sure if she could be sanctioned for punishment based on personal matters. However, she soon realized it didn't matter. He could give her a late punishment for the last incident. "Sylvia," de stopped. "Yes," he looked around to the surrounding land and sky. "Where are we?" Sylvia blinked curiously. Realizing he was a little out of himself, she pointed him in the right direction, keeping quiet about his tears. "The exit is on the other side." "I see. Guide me." They turned around, but before they could even take one step onwards, they noticed a dubious hooded individual standing in the deep corners of the graveyards, blocking the confined forest road leading to the exit. Seemingly appearing out of nowhere, he emitted obvious killing intent. With tired eyes, de glanced him over. "Who are you?" The individual didn't answer, but de didn't care. Using his psychokinesis, he rolled down his hood. As his bare skin was exposed, her nervousness grew. He had long hair and scars around his eyes, which seemed similar to that of a bird of prey, only exaggerated by his slim jawline. Although it was Sylvia's first time seeing him, she was familiar with his face. Rock Hark, the wizard killer. "Sylvia?" "Yes." "Run. If you go through the back, you'll be able to get out, right?" De saw the villain's fate emerging from his fearsome flesh, staining him with a red mist. He took a step forward, positioning Sylvia behind him. "Are you sure?" Sylvia cautiously asked. "Yes, you can't handle him." He knew all too well that normal wizards were no match for Rock Hark. His magic invalidation was something any gamer would call fraudulent. He didn't even have to touch his target for it to work. For as long as they were within his radius, they wouldn't be able to use magic. Even magic fired from beyond his range would be extinguished the moment it entered his ability. However, to gain such an overwhelming trait, he had to sacrifice his mana. "Go, Sylvia." Sylvia didn't reply, causing de jaw to clench tighter. "You'll just get in my way if you stay here." "Don't do something stupid." As he turned around, he lost his train of thought, seemingly taken aback. Sylvia had vanished. No, she was already so far away. Tata-tata-tata-tata, tata-tata-tata, it was a very dynamic sprint. Well, it was better than her loitering around and getting in his way. De smiled awkwardly before turning to face Rock Hark, who didn't seem to have any intention of letting Sylvia go. He needed a quick fix to this problem. He was holding a dagger in one hand, which seemed more than just an unusual weapon. It emitted an eerie and frightening aura. De stood silently as he put on his gloves. He then adjusted his collar and straightened his suit. "You won't be able to use magic in front of me." Rock Hark spoke calmly before swiftly launching an attack by swinging his dagger at him. De did nothing but stand still in the same spot. It was as if he were expecting him to come into his arms without any defense or countermeasures. Looking at the arrogant noble, the thought that wizards were always a bunch of arrogant and prideful wild beasts passed through Rock Hark's mind. They often relied on their magic and mistakenly thought they were superior to him, only to be awakened to the reality that they were no more than worthless beings upon realizing that magic didn't exist in his realm. Their distinguished confidence and pride would be lost at that moment, and they would start crying and begging for their lives. The professor before him wouldn't be any different. No, he was the pinnacle of wizards. With the sun setting and the moon rising, the scenery seemed to have been prepared for his death. Rock Hark approached de and swung his dagger without hesitation. Cuck. However, he was shoved away by an unknown impact that slammed into his abdomen. Rock Hark tumbled down on the ground but stood up quickly, staring at de He was still standing in the same spot, not even moved an inch. Cough. He wiped away the blood he coughed up, becoming aware of the possibility that his opponent had a weapon hidden on his person. HMMP. Rock Hark ran and stretched out his arm, pretending to stab with the dagger, then backed off, launching a feint to figure out what kind of weapon he had. However, instead of a bladed weapon or a blunt object, de long leg hit his nose. KH? Rock Hark pulled back, clutching his face. Rock Hark. Dekillian's eyes remained composed as he stared at him, but his gaze felt icy. "How much do my fists and feet hurt?" Dekillian asked out of genuine curiosity. The quality of mana wasn't limited to magic. It might be an exaggeration, but it was no different from being the quality of human. The quality of mana applied to everything related to mana, namely characteristics. Thus, Iron Man, which allowed one to use their body more efficiently while making their attacks more destructive, would have leveled up by 1. That was why he was curious. "Don't make me ask you twice." Rockhart glared at him as he blocked the blood flowing from his nostrils. "How much do they hurt?" He looked down on him from a distance. He stood tall and arrogant, making it seem as if Rockhart, who was on the verge of tears, was far below him. "Answer me." Rockhart turned around and ran, but before he could make it far, a kick hit him in the back of his head, causing him to fall to the ground. Duong. As he felt a tremendous shock, his vision tumbled down. One of his eyes seemed to be staring directly at the spiraling and star-filled sky. Blue crystals glimmered beyond the darkness as if announcing the devil's presence. Eucline eyes. "Answer me." Rockhart stretched his legs, causing the tips of daggers to appear from the soles of his shoes. He then swung one toward Dekillian's neck, who easily avoided it by simply taking a step back. His movements were graceful, almost as if he were watching the moonlight itself dance. Rockhart staggered to his feet. "I admit you're strong. You're different from the wizards I've faced. However, there are certain ways to kill you." No magic could materialize inside Rockhart's territory, though his ability's principle couldn't be explained magically. In a sense, it was more the principle of hatred. However, that was only true if his victim was within range. Dekillian only needed to be 1 step ahead of him. His defenses were filled with holes, but he knew he shouldn't be fooled by it. He already knew from experience that it was a trap, but he could easily level the playing field by using a trap of his own. Rockhart ran once more. Dekillian swiftly broke through the distance he created, and he swung his fist at him, but he swiftly ducked down. Rockhart thought he had him this time. His fist was out in the open, fully captured within his view. As fast as he could, he launched another kick, and although it was only 1 attack, it was enough to slash through his opponent. Slash! He heard the sound of his dagger digging into his skin, causing Rockhart to look up at him with a smile. However, his expression soon grew dim once more. "You use quite an interesting technique." Dekillian, with a dagger stuck in his side, was staring at Rockhart with his composure unmarred. At this rate? Rather, his face looked like he was calculating something. Rockhart twisted the dagger sideways, and a faint hint of tremor showed through Dekillian's eyebrows, but it soon settled. "It's bearable enough." His elbow collided with Rockhart's forehead. Bang! His other fist came upwards a moment later to collide with his chin. Bam! It ruptured as if breaking a watermelon with bare hands. Rockhart was sent sprawling onto the ground, unable to stand. "Rockhart," Dekillian slowly approached the man. "I'll ask you one last time. How much?" "You crazy bastard," it felt like a bulldozer hit. "Are you satisfied now?" Dekillian nodded as he looked down at Rockhart. "One more thing. Why are you targeting wizards?" He was curious. This guy had nothing to do with the main story, but he wanted to know anyway. "Because wizards are cursed kinsmen. They're apostates who betrayed God," he screamed bloodily. "The Isle of Wizards' wealth, Burkt, the tower, they're all nothing but rotten bastards. Dogs who can't do anything without magic, lunatics who enjoy slaughter." "But you are—" Rockhart tried to move his body, but he couldn't feel anything from the neck down. "Who do you fucking think you are?" Dekillian thought about killing him, but he wasn't thirsty for the blood of someone who just admitted defeat. The villain's fate was easily overcome. Above all, he learned one thing from his words. "I know. You are the enemy of the red box." At that moment, Rockhart's bloodshot eyes widened as he looked up at Dekillian. "How did you know? Does Eucline still remember the red box?" "At the very least, I do." During birth, those blood-related could be born with magic similar to their kin by having their bodies placed in the red box, a demon that granted and strengthened the magic of the person's family to the next generation. However, magic was invented to annihilate demons, so the wizards and the red box were bound to conflict. Their fierce war was one of the main pillars of the game's story. I understand how you feel. I sympathize with the years upon years of oppression you've suffered. The red box lived somewhere on the continent, but its fate was at stake. People feared that it would hand down their magic in the name of condemnation. If the Emperor took a different stance in the not-too-distant future, a full-fledged massacre might occur because the red box was nothing more than a demon. No, even now, cleaning was in progress without anyone being the wiser. Kill me. Rockhark looked strangely resigned. I won't kill you. If I kill you, I'll only lose face. At that moment, noises came from a distance. Reinforcements were approaching. Sylvia must have been successful in finding help. Stop talking and just kill me. Now, Deculline shook his head. I know the red box has no sin. What? What does a wizard like you? Rockhark was furious, causing him to scream like he was having a seizure. The footsteps in the distance were swiftly closing in on them. I'm Deculline of Eucline. As Deculline said so, he grabbed his wrinkled sleeves and tightened his loose necktie. He fixed his collar and smoothed his shirt and jacket. Our magic originates from the Gorieo dynasty and the blood of the hunter who fought against the devil. Rockhark remained motionless as he looked up at him. Rockhark. The cold wind swept his hair to the side. Did I lose my dignity facing you? The wizard killer merely basked in his elegance. Or did my provocations shake you? His commanding presence didn't falter, not even once. Either way, you can believe what I said. You are human, not a demon. Only one phrase came to Rockhark's mind at that moment. Noble. He displayed real class, unlike the false ones that dominated the world. The anger that burned in Rockhark's eyes died down, and unknown sadness swiftly filled the emptiness it left behind. The lyrical sentiments bothered Deculline, and he stamped his forehead with his feet. KGGGH. The beaten Rockhark passed out immediately before the police force came flooding in. Chapter 26. As expected of head Professor Deculline. A high-ranking police officer wearing a polished uniform approached me with a salute. Oh, I'm Superintendent Rappa. Wah Tilda, the way you lowered your leg makes it look like you were in a photo shoot. This fucking killer, should I hit him more? No, leave him alone. Oh, sure. His ability was lifted the moment he fainted. I scooped up some dirt on the road using psychokinesis and, mixing in 2 elements, lit a fire on top of it. The mushy soil quickly stretched thin, duplicating the properties of a metal. It was the effect of the foundation of ductility that I memorized a few days ago. Through it, I bound Rockhark's wrists and ankles. The police's jaws dropped. Oh, I've seen a lot of magic, but this is the first time I've seen such an elegant manifestation of it. It was as if it was dancing. Bring him to the station. Ah, yes, thank you for your hard work. The superintendent pulled out a band from his waist which suppressed the wearer's magic. That's useless against him. He nullifies magic. Just leave him cuffed with the steel wire. Oh, is that so? I didn't know about that. No wonder he often escapes prison and has eluded magic radars. His questions didn't end there. But how did you see through him so easily? No, more importantly, how did you even defeat someone who nullifies magic? I'm leaving. Oh, sure, hey. What are you lot doing standing there absent-mindedly? Salute to the head professor. The dozens of police officers gathered in the middle of the cemetery and sharply saluted. A message from the system came up at that moment. Actual verification. Linked characteristics due to monoquality reinforcement, Stage 1. Your characteristics have been partially raised. I was aware of that system feature. Essentially, it meant that the limit of one's characteristics was overcome. And, more fundamentally, it meant its ceiling had been raised. It was like an engine only generating 50 horsepower due to the poor quality of its oil, despite being capable of generating up to 100 horsepower. However, now that it had been equipped with a better oil, it had pushed its limits to 60 horsepower. Still, the engine had been stuck at 50 for so long that he had grown used to it, raising the need for an awakening process. That was what the actual verification just now was for. As expected, one real combat situation was better than 100 training sessions. Professor. A familiar voice called me, which I easily identified. Julie. She had a few strands of hair in her mouth, which made me think she was in a rush to come here. Thank you for your hard work. I hope you have a nice rest." I simply nodded and walked past her, looking at the sky and watching the crescent moon through the overgrown greenery as I walked away. Rustle, rustle. From the overgrown woodland to the dark and scary path leading to the cemetery, this road where the leaves were pitifully trampled on looked like the path I walked with her. The day I lost my little sister, she walked with me and cried with me as she was buried. Her beautiful face came to mind whenever I closed my eyes. I would only remember this today and forget about everything tomorrow, but even so, I didn't want to kill anyone in this place where I kept finding traces of her. ***, late at night, at Sylvia's mansion in the system's golden dust land of Halech. Glython arrived as soon as he received the report. Sylvia remained calm as if nothing had happened, but her father wanted to set Rockhark on fire and kill him. "Deucalion saved you then, child." In a subtle tone, he questioned her. She replied with a frown. "You're baiting me, aren't you?" No, no, child, never. It's just your father's way of talking. Ha ha ha. Baiting? Not. That's enough." Sylvia pouted to show how upset she was at the end of the dining table, where a sumptuous feast was set. "That's not what I meant." After making Glython feel restless with her nitpicking, Sylvia cut him off. "I'm also going to the Berkt conference, father." The Berkt conference. As head of the Iliad, Glython was summoned to the conference, which the families considered an honor to participate in, and was accompanied by one escort and one chauffeur. Ahem. He avoided his daughter's gaze. Berkt was too dangerous of a mountain range to bring her. He tried to avoid the topic as much as possible until then, but, "I'm going?" Glython sighed. On the brighter side of things, he thought it would be a great experience for her and that there would be no particular danger. In the first place, there was an unwritten rule that each of the 12 families had to be accompanied by their successor or their best student. Their relationships as households also weren't nearly as bad as they were 15 years ago. If he didn't take Sylvia by claiming it was too dangerous, he might be teased not as a doting father but as an idiot of a ruler. Okay, fine. If my child is coming with me, who should? "Oh, my lady, my lord, I shall be your escort." A man sitting and eating at the same table stood up boisterously. It was Sirio, the vice-captain of the Knights of Iliad. Sylvia's eyebrows twitched. "No thanks, you're too noisy." "Hey, come on, I'm better than that guy, Jairon." "Haha, that's right, Jairon takes everything too seriously." "I'm also against taking him with us." Glython chuckled. "He'll stay at Berkt's 3rd building anyway and can't come to the 4th building where we'll be staying at." "That's unfortunate, but my lady, that means we won't be staying in the same place. It's the principle of behavior. If I'm too close to someone with similar blood, just like Lord Glython, our blood will clot together, Tilda." "I know, be quiet," Sylvia responded, clearly annoyed by Sirio's frivolous tone. "We'll be leaving a bit earlier, though, child. Our trip will begin on Thursday, which is 2 days from now." "Will that be okay?" "That's 4 days earlier than initially planned." Sylvia's eyes narrowed at her father. "I received classified information." "Classified information?" "Yes, very expensive information at that. Among the 12 families, only Glython probably held such knowledge right now. Deucalion would have been the first one to know, but for some reason, his connection with the underworld had been cut off. He was still suspicious of its cause since the Eucline head's obsession with safety was close to paranoia. Was he simply confident in his abilities, or did he trust the assistant professor that he chose that much? "Can we go after 6 p.m.? It doesn't matter, but why?" "Wednesday is a 5-credit class, so I have to review it the next day." Glython nodded. "Are you talking about Deucalion's lecture?" "I see. But how is his class, child? Is he good at teaching?" "Yes, it's good. Good. Yes, I might even find it hard to register for his classes next semester." The popularity of Deucalion's lectures was explosive. Of course, his personality wasn't that admirable, and his assignments were extremely hard, but it was the duty of a wizard to learn. He was a professor who faithfully filled his students to the brim with knowledge, thus allowing them to fulfill their duty. Hence, starting next semester, she predicted people would stampede in an attempt to get into his classes. "I see. That's right." Glython snorted, almost as if he was sulking. A normal conversation and dinner soon followed. As Sylvia ate, she remembered today's events, specifically Dechilline, whom she just found out had also lost someone. He, too, had a painful past. He was merely pretending to be calm and collected, but she thought he was up, the buzzword at the tower these days. That was the abbreviation for unlucky professor. She saw him in a bit of a different light now. The image of his tears flowing down his cheeks popped up frequently in her mind. Understanding elemental properties class, week 4. As soon as I arrived at the tower, I thought I was in the wrong place. Are those journalists? Yes, that seems to be the case. Crowds of reporters gathered at the entrance. I peeked through the window and in the middle of it saw the chairman. With her intense gestures, I first thought that she was driving them away. But I was proven wrong as soon as I opened the window a little bit. Head Professor Dechilline was initially with a freshman wizard. Really? Our precious head professor. He's been in pursuit of the wizard killer since way before. He was enthusiastically conducting a press conference by himself. His effort is presumed to have paid off. Oh, yes. There's no question about Head Professor Dechilline's combat abilities, even though they're not as great as mine. Are there any more questions? The way he subdued the wizard killer. I don't know about that either. I ordered the driver to turn around the back gate. Good work. Yes, thank you. As soon as I climbed out of the car, I went to the tower and stopped in front of class on the 3rd floor. I straightened my jacket and opened the door. The debutantes, chatting excitedly, suddenly stopped as soon as I entered. I moved behind my desk. Nice to see you. The classroom was as normal as usual. It was as if last night was just a dream. The world went on as if my memory of the past was nothing but ancient and impossibly distant. Before we start the 4th week of our class, I will announce the first and last place from last week's quiz. Sylvia is first with 100 points, and Ephraim is in last with 0 points. Ugh. A strange groan broke out from somewhere within the class, but I paid no attention to it and continued talking instead. The element for today's class is earth. Everything related to land, including sand and ore, belongs to this element. When mixed with fire, it turns into metal. When mixed with water, it creates mud upon which. As soon as the class began, they began to look disappointed. Were they expecting me to tell them the tale of how I apprehended the wizard killer? It's not going to happen. Okay, before we start with the basics, let's do a warm-up. Whoop. I flicked my finger and Alan came in carrying a bag. Using psychokinesis, I made the items inside it float. The wizard's eyes widened as a total of 150 blue stones simultaneously rose out. These mana stones are each worth 3,000 elnis. I held onto them using basic beginner psychokinesis. I'll leave them in that state. Interfere with my psychokinesis and try to take it. If you can, then it's yours. Mana stones were a very important material for wizards with uses for magic research, production, or catalysts. Of course, it could also be used to enhance magic when held in one's hand and used as a temporary amplifier. Simply put, it was a wizard-exclusive jack-of-all-trades item. Ephraim's eyes shone as she looked at one of the mana stones. Magic interference. The act of interfering with the magic implemented by a wizard, while also obstructing the enemy's own attempts at disruption. If you can't interfere with your enemy's magic, then always be prepared to protect yourself from the same attacks coming again and again. Those defending against incoming magic interference are in a much more advantageous position, but it should at least be attempted at least once for offense anyway. I was curious about this. How much could my basic beginner psychokinesis resist these debutantes? Psychokinesis was the foundation of the manipulation series. It was one of the many subjects taught in the tower, but some wizards instinctively learned it without looking at theory books. Even a debutante should be proficient against beginner psychokinesis, so I set up basic beginner psychokinesis with a little bit more power. I specialized in control and earth, but these debutantes were the best talents on the continent, so I might be humiliated if I was careless. You may start. I stood still and waited. At first I expected I'd only last 3 minutes. I was controlling over 100 items simultaneously while the wizards only had to take one. But 3 minutes had passed, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. No matter how long I waited, my psychokinesis didn't falter. I watched the clock. My mana was being used up little by little, but still I was relaxed. Were they not going to even try? Growing suspicious, I turned on vision. Zeeing. Zeeing. The immense magic that my students poured out filled my view, allowing me to witness their mana attempting to disrupt my magic. The huge flow of mana was making me dizzy, so I immediately turned off vision. Try harder. Just like that, another 5 minutes passed. The wizards began to cry out and groan, unable to concentrate. Not long after, they started drooling as blood flowed from their noses, their eyes turning crimson. My psychokinesis deflected all of their interferences. GGGRRR. However, a mana stone in the third row on the right began to shake at that moment. It was clearly moving. Soon enough, I saw mana connect to it. Not surprisingly, it was Sylvia who accomplished it. Now done with her task, her head hung down as she panted. Good job, Sylvia. You're in the first place. Sylvia nodded without answering. About 3 minutes later, the second mana stone trembled. Next, Ephraim. At that moment, while this week and last week's first place remained the same, the second place was usurped by last week's last place. The other wizards looked at Ephraim with no small amount of surprise. Huo! Ephraim breathed out loudly, her face now dyed red, and looked at Sylvia. She then smiled confidently with both her nostrils bleeding, though Sylvia made an effort to ignore it. It seems that there's no one else. I was flustered. I didn't think they'd find it this difficult. No, it was more than just difficult for them, it seemed. They made an effort to the point that their noses bled, and one by one, the students hit their heads on their desks as they groaned. Based on their complexion and expressions, I concluded they had tried so hard that they were reaching the level of utter exhaustion. Stop. I was wrong. They were wizards, but they were also debutantes. They might know more magic than me, but they couldn't win. Stop. Everybody stop. I set the difficulty wrong. Admitting my mistake, I immediately returned the mana stones to the bag and canceled my psychokinesis as the drained wizards groaned like zombies. I was going to say something to them, but the classroom scene was worth watching quietly. Saliva and blood flowed freely, and a weird, thick smell reeked stealthily across the place. Feeling dizzy, I lost my rationality for a moment. Pathetic. Harsh comments slipped from my lips unknowingly, causing the already heavy atmosphere to fall even more. Whatever it was, I didn't want to be here anymore. Time for a break. Clean up what you've slobbered. Chapter 27. Pathetic. D'Quillin halted the class with his scornful remarks. The classroom fell silent momentarily under the head professor's raw disappointment. Deep sighs soon followed. The debutante wizards felt their dreams deflate as they hit a wall. D'Quillin's magic was immovable. His psychokinesis was like a heavily defended, impregnable fortress that simply commanded a response like how can psychokinesis be like this, out of those trying to siege it. Based on their universal knowledge, psychokinesis was easy to learn and familiarize oneself with. Still, if they didn't have the aptitude for it, the output would be weak. It certainly wasn't a branch of magic that could be considered minor. Hence, his psychokinesis itself was already a masterpiece. That begged the questions, what in the world is D'Quillin's other magic, and how pure is his mana? Using such justifications, those in a lower caliber than the head professor didn't fall to their sense of shame even if they were looked down on and treated like filth. The sullen silence ended in 3 minutes. Ah, that sucked. If I knew how to do that, I wouldn't be a debutante. Does he like toying with us? How did he get all those mana stones, though? He would need to use a huge sum of money for those. He's known to throw money away. I mean, he did spend 200 million elnas at the auction house, in a single day. 200 million. Such backtalk excitedly filled the classroom. Well, I'm dying. By the way, how did you do it, Iffy? I thought I was going to die. Julia asked Ephraim upon recovering from her loss of consciousness. Ephraim glanced at her and simply shook her head. I'm not sure either, I can't explain it. Still, when she did it, she felt like she might die from joy. To exaggerate a bit, she felt a similar sense of accomplishment too when she passed the tower's entrance examination. The target was D'Killian's magic, which was why she tried as hard as if her life depended on it for those 30 minutes. Just tell me how it felt. Lie I puss a trin wid ma bare ends. Are you trying to say it's like you pushed a train with your bare hands? Ephraim nodded. D'Killian's magic was almost like a rohawk boar. Just like the beast's very distinct taste that couldn't be compared with any other pig's, his magic was leagues apart from the other professors in the tower. Ooh-oh. After finally letting go of her concentration, she immediately felt the fatigue wash over her. No, but wasn't the difficulty too great? I think he's just screwing with us. Julia grumbled as her friend drank cold water. I think I understand it a little. Ah, my tongue is loosening up now. What do you mean you understand it? I've realized something. Those words not only moved Julia's ears, but also many of the others around them. Ferret and Rondo, who were in the front seats, turned around. What is it? Yeah, I honestly don't know psychokinesis beyond its beginner level. However, as I tried to break through D'Killian's magic, how should I say this? It felt like I pierced something. Instinctive realization. Beginner psychokinesis certainly wasn't enough to defeat the head professor's magic. However, even so, she didn't give up and desperately tried instead. I think I realized how to deal with it automatically after I had broken through his magic. It's like I gained an insight on how it works. Psychokinesis's magic circle created its lines to increase its circles. Her technique interfered with that. Her realization transcended intuition. Through it, she made the mana stone move, albeit only a little. Still, she succeeded, and since there wasn't much difference between her and Sylvia's result, it was a success that she could be proud of. The mana stone, worth 3,000 elnis, she now held in her hands, served as proof of it. Wow, really? That's amazing. I don't know the exact details of how I did it, but that's what I did. Before she knew it, there were eyes around her shining brightly. Wizard's favorite words were realization first and insight second, and she mentioned both of those, which made it sound reliable. She was in last place last time, but even she could do it. That made her explanation a lot more believable. Anyway, I think it was correct. You have to play with a master even in things like chess to improve, right? When you do it with beginners, it's just non-stop turnovers. You mean back and forth? Ah, yup. My tongue has loosened up some more. Ephraim was confident. D'Killian's suggested path wasn't wrong. If they wanted to improve their knowledge, understanding, and skills as wizards, they only had to follow the path he prepared for them. However, the other wizards in the same classroom, particularly those from noble backgrounds, grew cautious of Ephraim. Even Sylvia was looking at Ephraim with wary eyes, which didn't happen often. She once heard a strange rumor, after all. According to it, Ephraim was given personal guidance by D'Killian until late at night. There was also a professor who witnessed him leaving work very late. At first, she didn't believe it, but her sudden jump couldn't be explained if the rumor wasn't true. The head professor's private lessons were the only plausible reason for her unexpected development. Sylvia couldn't hold back her complaints and closed her eyes for a moment. Why did he give a reward to the last place when it should have been for the first place? Unknown bubbles boiled up inside her. Hey, why aren't you cleaning up? A sharp sound rang. Beck, the male wizard sitting near Sylvia, had been ridiculously trying to follow D'Killian's style. He had been looking at Sylvia's expression until he began criticizing the group of commoners. But we already cleaned up our seats, Julia replied. What? You have to empty the trash cans at the back too? Professor D'Killian is extremely disgusted with that, don't you know? In principle, there was no distinction of status in the tower, but the nobles looked for ways to look down on the commoners discreetly anyway. Ephraim frowned. You can't even see it if you close the lid anyway. If it bothers you that much, why don't you do it? What? How dare you, you little SH? The door of the lecture room opened, forcing Beck to quickly sit down. D'Killian strolled in and looked at him as he clamored. He looked at his nose, to be exact. He still hadn't cleaned up the blood on it. There were even hairs sticking ever so slightly out of his nostrils. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Afraid of his gaze, Beck bowed down quickly. Sit down at the back. You're irritating. Yes, sir. Beck was immediately isolated, which the commoners felt grateful for. Naturally, they ignored the sounds of him quivering. Look at that, Tilda. It doesn't matter if it's nobles or commoners, he nags at everyone. Julia tapped Ephraim, who frowned and shook her head. That doesn't benefit us all that much, though Dechilin resumed the class upon reaching the table. Just now, what do you think is the reason why you couldn't interfere with my magic? Because it's more advantageous to defend than attack. The class didn't expect that answer, especially not from Sylvia. Dissatisfied with Dechilin, she glared at him like a rabid dog, causing Ephraim to raise a curious eyebrow. The professor should do a demonstration, too. She continued. The activity they did put the defender in a much more advantageous position. Sylvia didn't care how long she could hold out, even if it were just 5 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes. She would be satisfied for as long as she could see Dechilin shivering every second of it. That's right. It's common sense that defending is far more advantageous. Ephraim added, which made Sylvia even angrier. Of course. Dechilin nodded. He was brimming with unwavering confidence that his psychokinesis was far beyond the debutantes. No, his aura made them feel as if it wasn't inferior to anyone in the university. You may try it. Sylvia utilized psychokinesis as best as she could immediately, almost as if she had been waiting for those words. Gripped by Sylvia's magic, the mana stone began to float. Wee-eyeing. Dechilin immediately captured it. Oh, Sylvia was flustered. It was so quick that she couldn't even discern what had just happened. He took it away from her in a second without her even realizing it. No, it was far faster than that. Your turn, Ephraim. After a glance, Ephraim hurriedly searched her desk, books, pencil case, and notebook. She then bowed her head as if she was ashamed and defeated. I'm sorry, I don't know where my mana stone went. I've lost it in that short time. I'll give it back. Oh, I found it. It's in my pocket. I'm sorry. I'll give it a try now. Ephraim took out the mana stone and made it float using psychokinesis. She concentrated so hard she felt like her nose was about to start bleeding again, but Dechilin still took it away in an instant. The result was no different from Sylvia's. What was that? Ephraim felt like she was hit by a train. No, 3 trains. Dechilin calmly continued talking. If the magic skill difference between the attacker and defender is this much, it's no longer interference. It's one-way violence. Ephraim and Sylvia, suffering mentally at the same time, frowned. That's why you should know your limit, and why you need to understand mana interference, which is different from magic interference. Dechilin turned off the lights in the classroom with a flick of his finger. 3 magic circles of psychokinesis then appeared. It was beginner, intermediate, and advanced, respectively. There is no need to break up the magic. You don't even have to confront it with the same magic. Dechilin flicked his finger again, and a red line was drawn on the core of the magic circles. You just have to eject mana and approach it with the idea of destroying the core circuit. That was quite a famous way of explaining mana interference, a technique that most wizards acquired from living at the tower. However, it wasn't a universal solution to all magical assaults. They could only interfere with magic they knew and understood, and since time was of the essence in real-life situations, most of them often chose to defend using barriers or confront them with the same magic instead. Still, no pain, no gain. The main factor of this technique, called mana interference, is to discern the core circuit of the magic circle. I'll show you how to identify it. Dechilin easily described this method of mana interference while materializing it and explained how to locate the core circuit of a magic circle. Even if you're encountering a form of magic for the first time, remember to keep yourself from being flustered, and instead look at it from the perspective of a wizard. There will always be a core circuit in a magic circle, which depends on whether the system should be destroyed or subsidized or on the element used. Likewise, through that, you'll be able to predict its location, thus allowing you to attack and disrupt it. He read not only magic books, but also textbooks. He read rare and ancient publications that even respectable nobles couldn't find or decipher. Using the game's system and setup as a reference, he compared and contrasted dozens and hundreds of magical techniques he learned through understanding. When you get used to using mana interference, magic interference will also be much easier. Now, look again at the magic circle of Gale Blade All. In terms of professionalism, most wizards, no, almost all wizards, would have kept it as a trade secret, but Deucalion shared it with them without any hesitation. The magic of the line of destruction is a circuit that spreads from inside to outside as if it's always exploding, and with that in mind, the wizards began to take notes again. They focused on Deucalion's every word, feeling as if his sentences, from his pronunciations to his tonality, were being engraved in their ears. Experiencing Deucalion's charisma had always fascinated them. That was the positive manifestation of his overawe and grace. Time flew by swiftly. 6 p.m. As soon as the clock hit that hour, Deucalion stopped the lecture. That's all for today. The wizards were very flustered. Deucalion's lecture was still incomplete. However, he was very thorough with the notion of time. No, it was almost a compulsion of him to make sure he was neither late nor early. He came exactly at 3 o'clock and left exactly at 6 o'clock. Hence, there was no overtime or early dismissal in his class. We still have a little bit of the lesson left undiscussed. Please teach us how to make interfering with pure elements easier. Deucalion looked over the debutantes, his gaze seemingly full of pity. Enough with the complaints. You're the ones who wasted your time. It'll be best for your growth to imagine the rest and realize it yourselves. After saying that, he tidied up his clothes and left the lecture room with all the debutante wizards staring blankly at him. Everyone usually got up once the class was finished. No one did today, however. Ah, someone moaned. It was probably Ephraim. Sylvia blinked while holding her pencil. Her professor's cut-off sentence annoyed her 3 times over. What the hell? How does he expect us to imagine the rest of it? One wizard muttered, but everyone in the classroom felt the same. They talked behind Deucalion with no intentions of leaving the classroom. But as soon as they realized he wasn't returning, they blamed the world itself. The Imperium, located in the south and connected with the system, was controlled directly by the Emperor of the continent himself. It was the backbone of the imperial administration, which was protected by the rugged mountain Kydia. Of the Empire, including the Foreign Affairs Bureau, the Justice Bureau, the Internal Affairs Office, and others, were based. There was a criminal interrogation room directly controlled by the Public Security Bureau. That was where Rockhark was detained. You will be sent off to Recordac. Lilia Primian, the deputy director of the Public Safety Bureau, interrogated him. She was quite famous within the Imperium. You will be spending your years there until you die. No, perhaps you won't even last a year. Rockhark looked at her dead in the eyes. Primian had her long blue hair tied up in a ponytail. Inside her cold and transparent like ice wall, a strong, unique aura lay in wait. Any objections? Primian asked. Her tone was hard, but her timbre was soft, considering she was the type to have a good-tempered voice despite her normal impression. I asked if you have any objections. Rockhark didn't answer. A vein bulged on her temple. Turn it on. What? Your ability. He smirked as he closed his eyes. At that moment, all magic within their area was cut off. As soon as it was confirmed that the crystal ball observing the interrogation room wasn't functioning, Primian snapped back. You son of a bitch. I told you not to do something that would harm the clan. Rockhark looked at Primian, still without saying a word. She gazed back at him expressionlessly. I would have already killed you if I was allowed to. If it is revealed that you're part of the clan, the already oppressive public opinion will become even stronger. The reason you're not dead yet is purely for research purposes, so don't even mutter the words red box. Do you think we can still scrounge off of the Empire? It's possible as long as you don't reveal it. Red box members are no different to ordinary human beings aside from the moment they are born. No, we are born with devil-like talents. Why do you think they are afraid of us? You fucker. For as long as we have a lot of talent, it doesn't matter if we're part of the red box. Primian babbled on in anger, but her expression was as indifferent as always. One more thing, why did you provoke Deucalion? The Eucline family was already on our watch. Is the clan planning on killing him? Rockhark asked. Primian wriggled her eyebrows. We're just keeping a close watch on him, but if the executioners begin to move, there's nobody they won't kill. You don't have to kill him. He's not a fake. He's a real noble. Real noble, you idiot, I want nothing from him but his sin. Rock Hark shook his head, recalling the Deculine he had seen the other day. His dignity affirmed that Red Box members were human beings, not devils. His eyes pierced through him as if to say he was right, and there was no doubt about it. There hadn't been many nobles like him in the past. No, there might have not been any in the first place. He made him feel as if even the Red Box could live in harmony with the world. He knew that I was a Red Box, but he didn't kill me. Primion's eyes grew bigger. That was the only time she had shown surprise today, or perhaps even in the entire week. However, she soon regained her composure. Didn't you know that the ancestors of the Eucline household took the lead in the slaughter and suppression of the Red Box? I didn't know. However, if we treat him the same just because he has the same blood as his predecessors, then it is no different from confirming that we are devils. You sure talk a fucking lot, you bastard. Premion swept her hair back, and Rock Hark smirked. How long do you think you can keep that important position without getting caught? Forever. There's no way to distinguish a Red Box externally or through their blood. There's food that the clan can't eat. I just don't have to eat it. What if another method is created? You're afraid of it too. That's why you've been looking everywhere for preventive measures. It's not like that, you son of a bitch. Hope shone in her eyes. The Emperor's condition is bad. He might even die soon. The current Emperor's policy completely disregarded the Red Box. Even with the appeal of those fucking bastards, the Emperor didn't budge at all, but only the heavens knew what his successor had in store for them. You will be cooped up in Recordac. Recordac, the worst prison on Earth. A hell filled with bitter cold. The clan's full-scale plan will be mobilized after the ascension of the next Emperor. I don't know if you'll survive in that place until then. Clang, 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 clang. Upon sensing that the room's magical surveillance was nullified, and thinking the situation was turning grave, security officials rushed to the door. Deactivate your ability and clench your teeth. Anytime, if it's from a clan member's fist. Rock Hark laughed, and Premion grabbed him by his hair. Bang, she then smashed his head on the desk. The door opened just in time. Deputy, no, stop, you fucking bastard. This shithead, I'll smash your head in. Bang, bang. Powerful men rushed in to stop her as she kept bashing his head against the table. Deputy Director, please calm down. Move, I'll gut this little bitch and strangle him with his intestines. No, you can't. What are you doing? Stop her. Stew up. Chapter 28. Late at night on the library's rooftop, Ephraim leaned against the railing and looked at the university's night view. She could see the tower's blue glow that stretched all the way to the top. At the bottom, the lit lecture rooms, roads, and restaurants of different buildings brightened the lands like stars. Because of the exam period, her night at the university had ended. Ephraim looked at the Ouija board she was holding in her arms. It had a black edge with a white background, and it was the mini version of the Maca board, a communication window for the Tower Wizards. Its official name was Gian Co Pan, an omnidirectional device that allowed multiple communication. It was a magical tool, more commonly called the Ouija board, that functioned as a bulletin board. It also made communication between wizards possible, but professors didn't use them since their lifespan was only 7 to 8 years. Perfectly organized, Deculine's lecture notes, currently 4th week. How much would it cost if I auction it off? A 1-page sample is available. Ephraim found it necessary to write that post on the tower's secret bulletin since 50% of the 100,000 Elnies donation she received had already been spent on stationaries and magic books. 500 Elnies, 1,000 for me, 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. Depending on its condition, I can give more. Oh my. Surprised and mildly scared of the crazy prices, she deleted it immediately. No wonder. I would have bought it if I had a lot of money, too. For that reason, she found Deculine very strange. Why did he reveal such efficient techniques and tips without hiding anything? Most professors received large sums of money to secretly give private lessons, with the condition that the student came on their own accord and was under contract to not reveal it to external sources. She heard that wizards were the type to always be wary no matter how much money they had, and were always jealous of their juniors when they climbed higher than they did. Taking that into consideration, Deculline, who had changed this year, was acting suspiciously. Whatever. Ephraim shook it off as she took a deep breath, upon which a sudden thought passed by her mind. My dad probably agonized over something in this railing some time ago as well. Unsolved magic, or something more serious like answers to life, in the night breeze here. Don't worry. Ephraim took out a letter and recited it in a low voice. She exchanged letters with her father every week. The voice and video messages that showed a glimpse of her father's genius had already died, but his handwriting and traces of those days hadn't yet disappeared. My daughter. I am making a present for you now. Reading the first sentence is already making her tear up just by reading it. I will definitely finish your research, Dad. Some of her father's research was in his letters, and the rest was somewhere in the tower. Ephraim knew their exact locations. I'll make sure to become a better wizard than Deculline, than the enemy. That's impossible. Someone intruded her time alone at that moment. Surprised, Ephraim straightened up and looked back so swiftly it looked like she was going to break her neck. Sylvia. Ephraim scrunched her eyebrows as she glared at her. If you're here to pick a fight, I'm not in the mood, so just go. Sylvia sneered with a troubled face. You called Deculline your enemy, yet you received a private lesson from him. Pathetic. Hypocrite. What nonsense are you talking about this time? Where did you hear that strange rumor? No, more importantly, you believed it. How noble of you. Sylvia's cheeks puffed. Ephraim won against her heart, which could easily sweep off any provocation. You know what? Mumbling her discontent, she soon grinned, the edges of her lips twisted upwards. Deculline hasn't been to the research lab in almost 3 years, not once since your father died. PFFT, of course. My dad was such a genius that Deculline couldn't do anything without him. Ephraim laughed, taking it as an unexpected compliment. However, Sylvia continued, starting 3 months ago, Deculline has been going to the lab every day. He cleaned the place and even picked an assistant professor. He brought new magical tools and everything. Ephraim's expression swiftly stiffened at that moment. What do you mean? Satisfied with that response, Sylvia grinned and twirled, her ticklish tone flowing through the winds as she did. Who knows? Tap, tap. Ephraim didn't bother chasing after her even though she left such remarks. Instead, she merely stood there in deep thought. No way. Some time ago, my father told me Deculline was monitoring his letters. He's watching his every move, and since he's after his research, that leaves him with no place to hide it. No way. I shouldn't be worried. The research is stored in a place he could never find. The magic that protects it scatters over time, but even so, Deculline's greed will never be able to locate it. Remembering the code we used to play, he left it somewhere only I... No way, it couldn't be. It couldn't be. My father is a genius. He has never been wrong, which is why I'm confident the research that Deculline is conducting has nothing to do with my father. She repeated it over and over again. No way. Sylvia's voice ceaselessly rang in her ears. Asterisk, asterisk, there were only 3 days left before the Berkt conference. Finally, at long last, I completed the beginner psychokinesis just in time. Fortunately, I got the timing right somehow. Satisfied, I took a shower in the building. I had one maid here since it was too bothersome to keep going back to the main house for such a simple task. Knock, knock. I heard a knock on the door as soon as I wore my robe and came out. Who is it? It's Roy. What's wrong? Say it. Yes, my lord, your finances are in peril. My eyebrows immediately furrowed. My finances? Yes, at this rate it might run out in 2 months, I nodded. Well, I hadn't given a lecture these days, so I had no other income aside from my salary as a professor. On the other hand, my expenses were endless, including 150 mana stones, books, and a wide array of ancient books. Wait. Using psychokinesis, I retrieved a safe, which only responded to my mana, hidden under the floor of the building, and opened its lid. Let's see. I took out whatever I could get my hands on, revealing it to be a pottery product, the flower vase of the East that I bought at the auction house for 5 million elnies. I was about to use Mita's hand, but I paused. My remaining mana was 1,635. If I wanted to sell it at the right price, I had to use all 3,000. Come back in 3 hours. Yes, I understand. Roy left, and I waited until my mana had fully recovered. As I did, I checked the item using my Man of Great Wealth ability, revealing its light to be as brilliant as it had always been. Mita's hand wasn't that effective when used on enlightened treasures. It only raised a 30,000 output to 30,300, for example. However, the flower vase of the East was definitely an uncultivated item. I have to try it at least once. After waiting for 150 minutes, my mana was finally filled to the brim. Gathering all of it, I used Mita's hand on the flower vase of the East. Shoo-woo-woo. The blue smoke came out from my fingertips and passed through it, causing its surface to sparkle. The result was the flower vase of the master craftsman from the East. Description: this vase, made by a master craftsman, is magically infused with its creator's heart and soul. Its potential has been enlightened using Mita's hand. Category: pottery vase. Special effects: the flowers in this vase will never wither. In addition, they will also gradually fade out and bloom into new flowers, each petal having the effect of a potion that has at least intermediate level fatigue recovery effect to upper intermediate level fatigue recovery effect. The 2.5 million Elni's vase had become a product so good I didn't even want to sell it anymore. The pottery's design alone made its value overflow, but now it also had the potential to become an inexhaustible product maker. It's better to sell it. Its potion's fatigue recovery effects had no use for me. My body didn't get tired at all, and I was confident there wasn't a lot of money to be made by growing and selling flowers. Knock, knock. Roy came back and knocked exactly after 3 hours, as instructed. I opened the door and handed the vase to Roy. Look for someone to reassess this and sell it. We'll be able to easily gain 5 years' worth, no 10 years' worth of finances with it. But my lord, isn't this one of the items you bought at the auction house? Roy was flustered, but I was disconcerted just as much. Over Roy's shoulder, Uriel was approaching with short and quick steps. Hey, Tilda, I came because you said you needed money. Tilda, that kid, who said she'd be staying over for only a day, had already been here for 3 days. I honestly didn't even know the mansion was this spacious. I knew you'd soon be in such a state. I can lend you some with an IOU. I shook my head. There's no need for that. I'll be reselling this vase anyway. Roy, take it to an appraiser. What? Are you crazy? Uriel grimaced. I thought about it for a moment and soon realized she was right. I corrected my words. No, I happen to have time, so I'll go with you. Who'd be receiving the item was also important. There would always be scammers at stores, and I could distinguish them all by their characteristics. What? No, it hasn't been long since you bought this, and you're already reselling it. I'll just lend you some. You're noisy, Uriel. Noisy? You're about to lose money right now. You won't get even half the price of it. How much did you pay for this? 2.5 million. I can guarantee you it'll only sell for 1 million. You bought this as an antique investment, and you're selling it after less than 2 months. Uriel was questioning my conviction, and even Roy seemed doubtful of my decision. Well, their worries weren't unwarranted. If you're so worried, then come along. No, I'm not worried, you piece of shit. Hey, hey. Uriel's screaming the moment I questioned her behavior, though she still grumbled in a much smaller voice. No, I'm not worried. You're just about to do something that doesn't make any sense. Don't you know that? If you're going to waste your money on that, it's not a waste of money. I'll show you, so just come with us. Wow, seriously, you're so stubborn. Her face was filled with anger and frustration, but I smiled at her once and went outside. Fine, I'll see where this goes. Uriel added. Asterisk. After an hour, Uriel arrived at the appraiser with Deculine. Who? She thought Deculine had been out of his mind lately. He didn't meet with Julie at all, and the Berkt conference overlapped too, which made her overly sensitive. Deculine always seemed to be determined to do inhumane things whenever he got overheated, and this time was no different. This is tremendous. When the famous appraiser in the system looked into the pottery he bought 2 months ago, he expressed so much awe that he seemed to have lost his mind. Uriel's mind briefly went blank. Deculine replied, If it's tremendous, then? Yes. Not only does it have aesthetic value, there's more to it that I can't confirm. It's not that you can't confirm, you just don't want to let us know. What? No, it's just... If you grow flowers in this vase, it won't wither. Eating the petal of that flower will recover your fatigue. The appraiser bowed down quickly with his eyes wide open. Uriel also flinched. Recovery of fatigue. Double weight, of course. I didn't know, but if that's true, then it has an excellent effect. That's right. Deucalion looked around the room and put a flower in the vase as decoration. There's no need to go all the way to Routen. After growing this flower to prove its effectiveness, we can hold a small auction at Halech. He then gave Euclide's fountain pen to the appraiser. The Euclide's pattern might attract people. I'll give you a commission, of course. Ah, yes. I'll do my best. You might receive 10 million at least and 15 million if there's more competition. At that moment, my 2.5 million investment instantly increased to 10 million, causing Uriel and Roy's eyes to widen. Good. I'll leave it to you to spread the word. Roy, I'll leave the overall observation to you. What? Ah, yes, I understand. That's it for today, then. Deucalion went out first. Uriel hesitated for a moment, then followed him not long after. You got lucky. See, congratulations. Uriel glanced at Deucalion on the side of the road. Not bothering to reply, Deucalion gave the two an order. Uriel, Roy, take this vase and go back to the mansion. Huh, where are you going? I have something to do at the tower. Why are you frequenting the tower these days? Uriel narrowed her eyes in suspicion. You don't need to know. If you have a new lover, then go ahead and throw away that straightforward and inflexible woman. Tilda, shut up. Deucalion got in the car without any explanation and left immediately. Vroom. Huh, seriously, that guy is a pain in the ass. Uriel and Roy were left in the middle of the road. There was no complaint. It had been a while since she came to the system, so she should at least look around the luxury street. Roy, you've been through a lot lately, so pick anything if you want. I'll buy it for you. What? No, it's okay. Just take my offer. I know you're having a hard time these days. The two walked together through the luxury area. That day, Uriel bought luxury goods for 5,000 elnies and a wallet worth 300 elnies. The last time I worked at the tower this week, I searched for exam questions used 3 years ago while planning the midterm exam. In other words, I was going to refer to the exams that Deucalion had given before. This is extreme. I could already tell how difficult it was just by looking at it. It was uselessly hard. Back then, my character mistook the level of the test as superiority, which became the birth of such ridiculous tests. Alan, are you there? I called my assistant professor through the crystal ball, and it only took him 30 seconds to run all the way to where I was. Yes, I'm here. Alan now proudly wore the assistant professor's badge after passing my screening. I tapped on the test paper from 3 years ago. By any chance, do you know where the original copy of this problem is? Original copy. Yes. This test is probably the result of my arbitrary modification. This document isn't recent, so if there is any data left from 3 to 5 years ago, bring it to me. Oh, yes, I'll look for it. Alan went out and came back carrying loads of files nearly as quickly. Here you go. Okay. I looked at the papers using understanding eyes, which immediately allowed me to realize something. It was as I had expected. This work was really worth referring to. I was certain of it, considering I had studied it to some extent as well. A good problem would make anyone naturally admire it once they had solved it. The sense of accomplishment they'd earned from it would feel so surreal it could even make them smile. Deucalion's exams were difficult, but they were also rather intriguing. Alan, this is a magic exam paper, right? Of course, magic wasn't mathematics. Therefore, even if it was just a test paper, there were special parts to it. Oh, yes, of course. Good, you may go. Thank you. I looked through the test with understanding. Understanding pure elemental magic sample problem. Calculate the formula for question 7 on paper. Analyze the hints of the circuit. Combine it correctly, and put mana into such an inferred spell. The answer to the problem was then revealed in the form of an image. As if a painting was blooming in the air, the solution became clearer and more distinct than nature. As the colors spread like flowing water, I witnessed a woman be born on the canvas. Each of the picture's parts represented an element. Her white dress was the wind, the sky was the water, the spreading clouds were mists, and her beautiful eyes, nose, and lips were a harmony of various elements. It was truly suitable for the subject understanding pure elemental magic. I could even go as far as saying it was the perfect problem for it, and it offered the perfect solution as well. I closed my eyes as I began to feel soft caresses throughout my entire body. It stimulated de Culine's characteristic aesthetic sense. The painting seemed to comfort wizards who struggled with the exam, yet it was strangely filled with faint anger. However, even that was used as decoration, making the masterpiece even more vibrant. Ha! I couldn't help but laugh in vain. Unknown jealousy rose within me. It felt so close to desire. Since the old de Culine wouldn't reuse this problem, I had no choice but to modify it. I would be jealous of this beauty I never even thought of before, but I would have humbled it easily. This test was perfect, and it suited my lecture. It was right to call it the test of a head professor. That being said, I gazed at the lady in the picture floating in the air. It wasn't Ephraim. It didn't seem like I had seen her anywhere. Who in the world was this woman? Knock, knock. I heard a knock again. I messed up the picture and opened the door, revealing Alan on the other side of it. Professor, there were more, so I brought them. Then I'll be on my way. Great timing. Coming up with an idea, I grabbed him before he could leave. Yeez, he tilted his head. I spoke. Get ready. What? Ah, yes. What should I prepare? He wasn't aware of what I was doing, but he was quick to solidify his will. I had always liked the fact that he never questioned me or my actions. Get ready to go to Burkt. What? However, this time, Alan couldn't help but be so surprised by my decision that he had to question if he heard correctly. Calmly, I reiterated my thoughts. I am choosing you as my assistant at Burkt. Alan blinked. His eyes, nostrils, and mouth slowly widened afterward. His lips especially parted far enough for a fist to easily fit in his mouth. At? Shut your mouth. His eyes swelled when he closed his mouth. Since he seemed like he was about to explode, I decided to try to calm him down. Of course, you have the right to decline. Burkt could be dangerous. No, I want to go. Really, according to Burkt's regulation, bringing a companion was a must even if there was no escort driver. Unfortunately, I had no one to take with me but him. Chapter 29. The northern part of the empire was largely divided into the northwest, the north, and the northeast, and 3 families governed each of the territories. Their main duty was to defend against external enemies. The Freydin were the most famous since they had the warrior's shrine, and the Daman family in the north boasted a reputation that was second to none. Salute. I hope the Burkt conference goes well. On the platform of Harlan, Daman's capital, the palace guards saluted Glython, who nodded with a smile. Thank you. Make sure to deliver the goods to Count Daman. Yes, sir. The train station was further north of Harlan, which was already a northern territory. Sylvia looked at the snowflake at the tip of her nose. It's snowing in April. Glython smiled, thinking how cute Sylvia was. Well, we're in the north, after all. Come, it's time to go. Okay, we'll leave you behind if you move too slow, my Lady Tilda, shut up. Their party boarded the train not long after. The VIP cabin was half the size of a standard room. Equipped with not only a bed but also a sofa, carpet, desk, and chairs, it was more than just cozy. How long until we get there, Dad? It's 6 hours to Harlan, then another 3 hours from the platform to the mountain range, Glython replied as he sat on the sofa. The platform the Burkt Express train used was simply called the platform since there were no villages or renowned locals around it to be named after. Only the platform was there. Upon arriving there, one would need to change trains to head straight to Burkt. What was the classified information about? Sylvia placed her writing materials and notes on top of her desk as she raised a question. An ambush. Sylvia's eyes widened as she sat down behind the desk. You're supposed to inform the others. Notifying them doesn't mean the enemies won't attack. If I revealed it, they'd have to come up with another plan, which would definitely cause unnecessary bloodshed since it was formulated in a rush. It's only right that wizards deal against wizards. Sylvia looked like she didn't understand. Hence, Glython further elaborated with a smile. Berkt has always been like this, child. It was actually even more perilous 15 years ago. Attending the conference itself was a war. Why? Because Berkt serves as a great honor and memento for prestigious families. Just attending it engraves the names of the 12 traditional families and the 8 exemplary families. 15 years, 20 years, 17 years. Since the interval between each summon was so long, Berkt's authority had reached the heavens before it could even be held more than enough times to normalize it. Hence, being allowed to attend, it was considered a clear indication of a family's power, nobility, and magical prowess. However, Berkt has special rules. Families who didn't attend the conference even though they were summoned wouldn't be invited again. In the event of a deficit in numbers during the conference, a new family would be summoned before proceeding. If the deficit were from the 12 traditional families, one of the new families would be selected as part of the new tradition. What do you think is the best way to bring down the 12 families? Sylvia immediately understood. Won't you be punished for such an act? Ha 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 ha. Glython laughed loudly. At times like this, he sometimes wondered if he had been too overprotective of his daughter. She had to learn of the world's cruelty anyway, so he thought it would be better to start now. Which of the 12 families have been part of the tradition since the beginning, child? Ah, exactly. If we're to be punished, then the others would have to be sanctioned as well. This is why in the end, no legal action can be taken against us, and why death on the way to Berkt, and while at Berkt, is considered a magic-related death by nature. It's only during such moments that the leaders of each household could go after each other's throats legally. After all, during the summons, the sophistry of the victim is a fool became the right logic. This phenomenon was even worse in the past. In order to join Berkt, and for their names to be born anew, many spotless families were shut down. The Rewaned family, led by Ihelm, was one such case. Compared to the past, we're in an era of peace right now. Of course, Berkt's authority is still absolute. Zekton, its new leader, however, hates conflict. So he came up with ways for families to cultivate their reputation while also removing the need for us to feel as pressured and cautious towards being summoned. It can't be denied that it's still riddled with perils, though. Sylvia nodded, and Glython laughed silently. Sirio, beside him, smirked as he looked out the window. Chee-ee-ee-ee-ee-I. The sound of the mana stone burning echoed seemingly endlessly as the train moved. Using that noise to her own advantage, Slyvia sat behind the desk and began studying and reviewing de Killian's class. Reflecting on every word he said, she did her best to understand his lessons and apply them to the mana in her body. She soon pulled out another note, however. It was her art notebook. She drew something by scribbling her pencil. Unknown to her, her drawing had eyes. They were blue, and tears dropped from them. Asterisk, I was working on an item in the separate building of the mansion. Jork suit, jacket Jork suit, vest Jork suit, dress shirt Jork was the most famous tailor on the continent. Nonetheless, I used Mita's hand on certain parts of it. My current actions were no different from arming myself heavily for Berkt. Efficient armor that provided a wizard with great defense was extremely limited throughout the world, considering artificially produced artifacts had a lifespan, and infusing magic into products proved difficult to accomplish. That was why, even though many magic books were in the prestigious Eucline household's possession, they didn't wear many artifacts. What if I donned armor instead? The magic infused in the armor might interfere with my magic. Hence, I decided to coat my suit with Mita's hand instead. Jork suit jacket. Description: customized overcoat made by Jork, the best tailor in the continent. Its durability has been increased dramatically by Mita's hand. Category: apparel suit. Effects: low intermediate physical resistance, low magical resistance. Mita's hand. Level 3. Physical resistance at mid to low levels was comparable to steel. It wouldn't tear even if a sword were to try to slash through it. By now, I had used up about 24,000 mana in the last 2 days to strengthen my equipment, so I was certain they finally offered me adequate defense. Knock knock. Who is it? It's me. Uriel. She immediately opened the door and came in, You're going like that. You're not going to wear this. Uriel bluntly handed me a trench coat. It was a treasure that transcended artifacts called the ancient Eucline trench coat. Were you saving that for times like this? The kid seemed worried about me. As soon as I thought about that, she brusquely snapped. Don't be mistaken. It's just that it'll make it hard for me to succeed the throne if you die before the turnover. Don't worry, I won't die. I just said that I wasn't worried, didn't I? If you get killed unceremoniously and abruptly, the Burkt conference will be delayed, and my coronation will become more difficult to realize. Uriel stopped talking for a moment before sharply asking me a question. More than that, don't you have anything to say? Not really. Really. Thanks for the trench coat. Uriel shrugged and soon shook her head. Not that. I mean about Burkt. Forget it. Do what you want with the Burkt conference or whatever. I'm leaving. Turning back gruffly, Uriel opened the door, only to find Roy in front of her, standing with a guest behind him. My lord, Alan has arrived. Uriel shot a glance at Alan, who was hunching down. Who are you again? I'm Alan, head professor Deculine's assistant professor. Tilda, so it was you, huh? I see. Uriel alternately looked at him and me as if something about him dissatisfied her. Good luck. Traveling with that person will most likely exhaust you like you've never felt before, so make sure you keep an eye out for your mental health whenever you're around him. Alan bowed at Uriel as she exited the room before he came inside. What's the plan, Professor? We'll depart tomorrow afternoon, so get ample rest for now. Yes, as you command. Alan's face wasn't comfortable despite his answer, though. The dark circles around his eyes seemed to have grown even bigger. That was only natural, though, since he hadn't slept a wink since last night. Alan. Yes, take this. Using psychokinesis, I handed him the protection robe that I bought last night. It was an artifact with excellent performance, which was why, even though it only had a 2-week lifespan, it was still priced at 30,000 elnies. I even get to have this. Alan suddenly burst into tears. Stop crying. You might make me angry if you cry in front of me. Oh, yes, I apologize. My misophobia didn't even allow tears, and snot made me feel repulsed. Alan quickly held back his tears and carefully wore the robe. Seemingly overwhelmed with emotions, his eyes reddened again. Rest in your room. Oh, okay, I'll be waiting. I still had a lot of things to do. In addition to the ancient Eucline trench coat that Uriel gave, at least 5 wooden steel were waiting to be strengthened by Mita's hand. Until my mana regenerates? I took out a book. Urtrand Martial Arts. Intermediate. It was a publication written by the martial arts legend Urtrand, who often charged and dominated through the front lines with his skills. The cost of finding this intermediate-level item alone cost almost 500,000 elnies. Still, I found it worth it, considering it was the ultimate martial arts made out of the accumulation of every other martial arts positive points. I started to move my body according to the content. Alan and I left for the road at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. Roy and my attendants sent us off, and Uriel had already returned home. After 7 hours, we finally arrived at Gaiden Station, where we immediately rode the express train to Damon's capital, Harlan. Reaching our destination, we first had dinner and bought books the man of great wealth found notable and striking. Only after that did we ride the train again for 6 hours to the north. It wasn't until Sunday morning that we arrived at the Burkt platform. Wow. Alan was in awe, which was only natural. Even I had never been to a place like this before. Snow stretched all the way to the horizon outside the station, but its exterior was rather warm and cozy. The platform itself was no different from a small village. I saw 5 restaurants with quite a few people in them. There were also hotels, a simple hospital, and even a magic store. Good morning. Just in time, a knight approached me, the pattern embossed on his upper chest immediately catching my attention. A Fraham knight? Yes, I'm Veron. I am tasked with escorting you on the train. Just you? Yes, there's only one escort on each train. Usually wizards are accompanied by guards of their own, so I turned on the villain's fate just in case. It didn't sense anything from him. He was colorless and odorless. Even the man of great wealth had no response. There's a lot of people today. It's a station where 300 people come in a day, but there shouldn't be many passengers going to Burkt. Well, that much was understandable. This place was a famous hunting ground, and medicinal herbs also grew around here, making it a good location to level up or farm. Alan, is it okay if we don't eat breakfast? Alan nodded. I bought a lot of packed lunches anyway. Do you want me to heat one for you, Professor? No, it's okay. After about 15 minutes of waiting, the head of the train appeared at the end of the railroad, upon which the staff on the platform began shouting. This is today's first train. Since the Burkt conference will be held tomorrow, 5 trains will be coming and going today to provide those who want to linger around the time to do so. Please keep that in mind. I'll be on my way. Veron bowed and approached the track first. Meanwhile, Alan and I stood together at the VIP aisle. Soon enough, the staff walked over to us and checked our tickets. You can sit anywhere in the VIP area, Head Professor de Killeen. Haha, now that I'm looking at you in person, you are even more handsome than I've heard. I got on the train and took off my fedora. A total of 7 carriages were divided into VIP and regular. The only difference between them was that the VIP carriage was much more spacious and its chairs were more luxurious. Huh, aren't you Professor de Killeen? As soon as I sat down with Alan, an unidentified person immediately spoke to me. At first glance, he looked like a noble, but he was carrying a camera in his arms. Ha ha, I'm Roan, a magic analyst and journalist. Well, I can't believe I'm riding the same train with Professor de Killeen. It's a great honor. I looked at him, taking note of the unnatural movements of his facial wrinkles and his smile, because of which the corners of his mouth shook. Screech. Oh, it's leaving now. Roan looked out the window and sat down. The train departed. Screech, screech. The express train moved at a speed that wasn't much different from that of the Mugung Waho. Wow! Astonishment filled Alan's face as he looked out the window. Even I was left speechless for a short while by the scenery beyond our carriage. The view was so beautiful it made our slow travel speed completely tolerable. We're riding on top of a cliff right from the start. Within arm's length was a steep cliff flowing like a waterfall, its edges covered in fog. That's a long way down. It'll take 3 hours to reach the bottom. Wow, Alan's vocabulary dropped in level. His eyes seemed drowsy, almost as if he had been freed from all of his nervousness. Sleep if you're tired. The express train moved forward while sticking to the mountain range's edges, but it would still take about 3 hours to reach Burkt's first building even with such a route. Huh? Ah, yes. Then just a little bit. Alan closed his eyes, and I put my briefcase on the floor of the train. There were a total of 11 VIP passengers. One was Roan just now, and the other 8's nationality and identity were subpar. I discreetly opened the briefcase in a way that no one would take notice. The treasure slipped out and crawled through the train's floor, located at the corners of the 8 VIPs. Tack, something touched my shoulder at that moment. It was Alan, who had buried his face on my shoulder and was breathing like a baby bird. Coo, coo, coo. My disgust rose at that moment, but I managed to suppress it. It should be fine for as long as he didn't drool. I let him be and instead took out a book. Ertrand Martial Arts Intermediati had only been suspicious of its contents so far, but my defense had clearly become better because of it. Hence, I decided to just read this book until something happened. Asterisk, tick-tock, tick-tock. Time flew by. Roan looked at the pocket watch on his trousers. It had already been 30 minutes. The express train arrived at the first station and 3 passengers got off. He looked at de Killeen, who was still reading a book. Roan calmly opened the newspaper. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Time flew by again. He roughly knew the flow by feel. 1 hour. We arrived at the second station and 2 passengers got off. De Killeen was still reading a book. Roan drank cold water to soothe his heartbeat. There should be nothing for him to worry about. His mission was going as scheduled. There would be no harm coming back to haunt him. No, he wasn't even doing anything wrong in the first place. His mission was just to simply get off at the 4th station. We arrived at the 3rd station and 2 passengers got off again. Now there were only 2 people left aside from de Killeen and his assistant. De Killeen was still reading a book. The assistant was leaning against his shoulder, but Dikiline's noble posture never once wavered. He seemed perfect, almost as if he was a painting, so much so that he even felt the urge to take a picture of him. Tick-tock, the vibrations from his pocket watch were starting to irritate him. Silence truly did drive people crazy. Time flew by in such a painfully slow way he felt like he was in hell. Finally, 2 hours had passed, and they arrived at the 4th station. Woo-oh! Roan let out a sigh of relief and stood up from his seat. All passengers got off at the 4th station aside from Dikiline and his assistant. Ha-ha. Professor Dikiline, it was an honor to be in the same space, even if it's just for a while. Then I'll get. He couldn't move. His feet kept running idly, but he remained in the same position even after taking a dozen steps. Roan, who had been whining for a long time, finally looked back. Dikiline was still reading a book without saying a word, but he, too, didn't move as if his body had been bound. What is this? I have to get off, I need. Not long after hurriedly scanning his surroundings, he finally found the cause of it, his pocket watch. His watch was stuck in the air, and its line was pulling his waist. Of course, Dikiline was the only one who could cause such a bizarre phenomenon. Professor Dikiline, why are you doing this? Think about this one more time before you leave. What? What are you talking about? There was no way he could have noticed it. No, he wouldn't have taken this train if he noticed. He wouldn't be sitting in the VIP carriage at the very least. Let me go, you piece of shit. I'll give you a chance. No, that's not. 5, he started counting down. 4, screech. The train departed again. It quickly regained its speed as Roan turned purple. 3. I don't know anything. 2. No, it's just W8. I was told to leave in the 4th station for 30,000 elnis. Oh shit, I need to leave right now, so let go, it will explode. Only then did his psychokinesis break. Roan fell forward and rolled to the floor. Hurriedly, he tried to crawl out. It's too late. Boo-woo-woo-um, doo-woo-woo-um, a powerful tremor reverberated throughout their carriage. A huge shock hit the bottom of the train not long after that. The explosion had commenced. Arug, Roan screamed, boom! A deafening roar thundered through their vicinity. Immediately afterward, their view was turned upside down. The bomb underneath their ride had been detonated as expected. Roan knew the train would shoot up, roll down the cliff, and fall. They would die in such a way that nobody would be able to find even their bones. He was dead, and it was all because of Dikiline. However, only his first prediction was correct. The train did shoot up. Kua. Roan floated momentarily in the air and landed on the ground, his face and whole body aching. Uug. Groaning, he opened his eyes, only to cringe from embarrassment. The train remained unscathed. He wondered if the explosion was just an illusion, but soon realized it definitely did happen. Chapter 30. The easiest way to define Berkt was to call it a village built on the ridge of snowy mountains, or an independent country with no borders with a population of about 1,000 people in the heart of a snowfield. It was divided into 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th borders, each having its own entrance, residences, and restrictions. The 1st border was open to civilians, including knights and adventurers, but only wizards could enter the borders that followed it. Sylvia had already spent 2 nights at the 2nd border. She was bored. She thought there would be something special, but aside from the occasional magical phenomenon, there really was nothing to see. There was still time until the Berkt conference, so all she could do was study. Information. But her father's words kept bothering her. There was apparently a planned ambush on one of the trains heading to where she was. She questioned if it was really a secret. If it wasn't, then what would it be by any chance? Wasn't it an instigation? My lady, 14 families have already arrived. Sirio went inside the cabin then, enjoying his specialty snowfield ice cream. Who has arrived from the 12 families? Oh, everyone has arrived aside from Eucline and Rewaned. That aside, I heard many of the chaperones are the same age as my lady. Of course, there are more who are 3 or 4 years older than you, but would you like to meet them? There are also people from the kingdom. It's an opportunity to broaden your horizon, Eucline. She paid attention to that family more than anything else. There's no need for that. Sylvia shook her head, pretending it was insignificant. I'm going to get some fresh air. What? Oh, okay, do with this information what you will, but the assistants are enjoying tea time at a cafe called Snow and Rain. Sylvia left the hotel without listening to Sirio. Walking out, she hid somewhere with no human traces and rummaged through her pocket, enveloping a blue pebble with her hand. It was the mana stone given by Deculine as a reward for passing the test. With this, she closed her eyes and released some mana, causing the mana stone to coagulate each of the released pieces together. Mana gathered around it, forming a specific outline. At first glance, it was a silhouette that was hard to identify. Sylvia colored the empty line. Her red, blue, green colors spread like smoke and soon breathed life and perfection into it. It was tied up. For the first time, she completed a creative activity. Dizzy, Sylvia stumbled for a moment but still admired her creation. As expected, I'm a genius, but I can't get careless. The hawk could flutter its wings and blink its eyes, and it could even move by itself. However, the most important aspect of it was its function. Sylvia took a deep breath and closed her eyes. She surely couldn't see anything beyond her eyelids, but gradually, a completely different landscape appeared despite the darkness. She was watching the world through the hawk's vision. Sylvia opened her eyes, satisfied. Fly high and show me what you see. The hawk nodded as if it understood. Follow the train tracks and show me what's going on. Woo-wash. The hawk's wings flapped and it then soared. Sylvia looked at the figure of fluttering sleet flying high for a while. Asterisk, 30 minutes later, it didn't take long for the express train to pass the 4th station. They looked at the ground as they sat in the mountain range, igniting a bomb attached to the bottom of the train. It was the appointed time, the appointed place. Boom! The explosion broke the train's frame and caused it to shoot up. Due to the explosion, the train got derailed, rolled into the cliff, and was crushed when it slammed against the bottom. Or at least it should have. Instead, the train stopped midair with a total of 3 carriages remaining suspended in space. That was as expected. He was a little surprised by Deculine's ability, which far surpassed his imagination, but Deculine's magical talent didn't catch him off guard. He agreed to do the job, knowing full well he'd have to deal with him after all. There was also no need to kill him. They only needed to hold him back from attending the Berkt conference. Not long after, they received the order to charge. Dozens of them rushed into the train midair, smashing the windows for a swift entry. At that moment, however, an unknown metal rose. Ting, 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 ting. Like stepping on a trap, a fragment like all appeared and pierced their vital points, penetrating through their flesh too easily. Their numbers quickly dwindled down to 5. However, those survivors were the core, the strongest of their team. Deculine sat down relaxedly and looked at them. His valuables were unscathed, and the terrorists couldn't hastily approach him. He looked off guard, but they couldn't be fooled. They never knew when metals would break out again. Hoo-woo! Alan opened his eyes then, looking at Deculine groggily. Deculine put into practice what he learned from the martial art book. That was, he pressed the acupressure point on Alan's neck to knock him out, causing him to fall asleep again along with the sound of a balloon being deflated. Deculine felt some sense of incompatibility at that point. He was so disparate and had seemingly forgotten the situation he was in. He looked at his hand. The sense of his fingertips were too soft. It was tender. The acute sense of his Iron Man ability allowed him to distinguish even the faintest differences in his skin. Alan. He already expected one of his secrets, but the other. Deculine looked at his unconscious assistant professor and looked outside the train again. From far away, Veron was approaching. The situation had already been wrapped up to some extent, though. It's over. At Deculine's words, his enemies laughed, then swiftly ran out the window again. He wanted to catch them, but he lacked mana. Only then did he stand up. It was time to get off the train, after all. Did you say you were Roan? As he was about to crawl out, Roan felt a jolt course through him. Sweating profusely, he looked back at Deculine. Why, yes, that. Take this kid with you. Oh, yes, sure. Roan got up quickly and carried Alan and was about to get off the train when he paused. The distance between the train in midair and the train track was too far. Can you lower the train a bit? Deculine shook his head. Despite its enormous weight, the train was mainly composed of the metal attribute, making simple stops possible, but no further movement was possible. "Get off on your own." Just in time, Veron jumped onto the train. "Oh, Sir Knight," Roan was overjoyed. Veron held him, who had Alan on his back like an object. "I'm going to jump." "What? No, Sir Knight, I'm not prepared yet." "That's okay." He jumped off. Gah. Roan, shrieking strangely, fainted as soon as he landed on the ground. The knight placed the two unconscious men on the train track and jumped back onto the train. He then stood still as he looked at Deucalion, who thought he was here to pick him up. An important truth entered his mind soon enough, however. This was it for Veron. He came walking. Deucalion calmly called his treasure, and the knight looked inside the train that was floating. The front of the train already departed for Berkt, but a follow-up countermeasure will come up soon. Veron explained. Deucalion replied, "Are they safe?" "Yes, there's only the two of us in this carriage now." Deucalion glared at Veron. Beside him, a bloodthirsty finishing move was rising. Was he off guard, or was Veron too perfect? Whatever it was truly amazing. He managed to even fool his character's eyes. "Veron, we've rescued the rest of the passengers," he continued, as if telling him not to worry. "So it's now your turn to die." Deucalion laughed in vain at the weird flow of his reasoning. "I'll give you a chance to think deeply about this. I've thought about it hundreds of times. You have to die." He couldn't count the reasons. Veron kicked the ground and pounced on him. The treasure arrived just in time and blocked his way, but he quickly unsheathed his sword and swung it 180 degrees. Clang. With one swing, the treasure with 10 handles tumbled down. The sword that bounced off floated and continuously attacked Veron in every direction. Clang. Clang. The frictional sounds of swords clashing thundered through the place like raging fires. There wasn't any gap in his refined swordsmanship, and his defense was reaching a certain point of mastery as well. There was a clear difference in their class. At this rate, Deucalion knew he would be defeated the moment he used up all of his mana. Hence, Deucalion recollected his treasure. Veron, still on alert, attacked with all his might again. However, even with such a violent attack incoming, Deucalion didn't close his eyes. It was all to cancel out his psychokinesis. It was a much better choice than being hit by that blade. Ugh, Kuwang. Their drop, which had been suspended midair, continued again, the train swiftly being swept down by the gravity. Asterisk. It didn't fall all the way to the bottom, however. Fortunately, the train got caught at the sharp side of the cliff, leaving only one of the VIP carriages skewered. Ribs. The impact of the high-altitude fall resulted only in a few of my bones being broken. My Iron Man body was added on top of the defense from the suit. My fractures would recover soon, while my senses were awakened by murderous intent. A stream of attack flared up, and I rolled almost instinctively. At the same time, I called my treasure, which I had left somewhere. Fortunately, it immediately came up and hit the knight on the shoulder. Clang. It was blocked by powerful innate defense, preventing it from causing much damage, however. "You're persistent." He babbled on and raised his sword again. I applied psychokinesis on his sword, but it bounced off my interference. I had no choice but to back away as he rushed in without giving me a break. As his blade was about to fall down my shoulder, I twisted my hips and reached for his neck. He was a little faster. He hit my side with his elbow, the impact strong enough to cause me to be slammed to the side. A gale of wind then blew through me as I was sliding at the slope of the train. The blade-like wind slices hit me from my collarbone to my hip bone. Blood dripped out of the corners of my mouth. He was dealing damage much faster than my recovery speed. I was about to stand up with my seat held, but I suddenly looked back. The cliff was a long way down. "This is tough." He walked straight up to me. I had no choice but to acknowledge him. Veron was much stronger than I was today. Even if we fought in perfect condition, I would still be pushed back. I used up too much mana to hold the train. "Are you betraying Julie?" Nevertheless, my body and mouth were still full of vigor. It's not only personality, but also an effect of characteristics. Even if it breaks. Class. Rare. Description. It may break, but it will never bend. When combat is in motion, it maintains mental strength until the battle is over. Almost all mental magical interference will not work. It was one of the basic characteristics of Deucalion that I didn't add. I wasn't nervous even in the face of death. I was in a life-or-death crisis, but Deucalion's heart was still beating steadily. "You have to die, so my master can live." Veron said. I let out an unconscious jeer. "If I live now, is your master going to die? If no one dies, then no one dies." He swung his sword without answering, and I lined up the wooden steel in its path, turning it into a shield and blocking his attack. Who-up. He destroyed it with a simple chop, though. It scattered like debris as he dug through it. It didn't make sense. It was as if he had become the sword itself. He raised his weapon once more. For a moment, time seemed to slow down. Looking at the scattered pieces of the sword, I had a simple thought. If I get cut by it, would the game be over? Like nothing ever happened? Was I going to open my eyes in the office again? If not, then a strange phenomenon occurred. A distortion appeared on his wrist as he was about to swing it down. Like a haze, the whole space was distorted. Veron looked at his arm with curious eyes. It then got tangled up, causing blood to splatter. His wrist was then neatly cut, causing his sword to drop and skid on the ground. Veron glared at his wound in pain. I didn't understand what was going on, but I couldn't miss this chance. I swept down my sword on his staggering ankles. Arug. Losing his balance, he slipped off the train. His whole body was pushed off by a gust of wind. I finally found silence at this unexpected moment. My opponent wasn't dead yet, however. His bloodthirst was still flowing. Clutching my side, I stood up and walked using the edges of the seats as support and looked under the train. Wee-eyeing. Inside a raging wind, he had stabbed his dagger into the bottom of the train with his remaining left hand. I was hiding my dagger. Veron showed a calm smile, causing anger to rise from within me, which I could almost mistake for passion. However, the words that came out of my mouth were extremely serene. "Veron, do you think this situation is right?" He shook his head as he swayed in the piercing wind. For a man who would die if he released his grip, he was unusually composed. "Of course, it's not right. However, I cannot help but remember all the evil deeds you've done to my master." Veron's voice was filled with poison. "You may not know of it or have forgotten about it." "No, I know." I knew all too well. This death variable was the consequence of Deucalion's numerous evil deeds. No treasure could ever compensate for all that he had done in the past. Nevertheless, "You've been patient, Veron." He laughed at my smirking remark. "That's right, but no, patience can recover, but mine no longer can. This is my end." He closed his eyes. It seemed like he was trying to recall something at the back of his mind. No, his whole mind seemed to have been filled with that one memory. My body has been dead for a long time now. I heard him reminiscing. "I still remember the day she saved me, a person no different from trash, from dying by being stepped on by a horse. I remember her smile. I remember everything from that day. I was dead, but the moment I stood up holding her hand, I was reborn." The raging winds rose through the cliff. Veron slowly opened his eyes and laughed. He was still stuck in those days. "My life belongs only to her." I despondently laughed. "You should have at least told Julie about your intentions." "The commander definitely would have refused." "Why did you make such an arbitrary decision, then?" "That's also because I'm dead." At some point, a blizzard began flowing through us. Fragments passed by his dagger. His only support would soon collapse. "I know that my feelings are bothersome to her. The mere existence of my emotions is a burden to her." He gave strength to the hand holding the dagger. "Regardless, I know you have to be stopped. Otherwise, the day will come when you will surely ruin her." Veron recited with certainty. I looked into his eyes and nodded. "That's right. That was extremely right." Deucalion's twisted love made Julie break her principle and made her kill Deucalion with her own hands. But you're also mistaken. I wasn't Deucalion. I would change Deucalion's future. I had no doubt that I could change it with my own hands. So, believe in me. I reached out to him. "I will not do anything to harm Julie." Veron didn't say anything. He just held out his right arm in silence, like he's telling me to take it. But I didn't take it. An unknown heat burned in my heart. "Veron." I clenched my teeth. "Even if I save you like this." His murderous intent was getting even heavier, swiftly turning to a ferocious flame that seemed to engulf the world. "You're still going to kill me." A fire that could never be extinguished, the root of his hatred could never be resolved and could never be soothed unless I died by his hands. Yes. Veron was honest. "I see no hand towards me anyway. A knight without a hand can't be helped. You can't be beside her," I uttered to Killian's retribution. "I want to kill you with my remaining hand." At the same time, Veron remained foolish. I held back my anger. "You hopeless and stupid being." The wooden steel in my hand flew. With a tight grip on his dagger, he spoke. "Listen carefully." Veron closed his eyes. "I love Julie." Kuung, the train trembled. His bloodlust still seemed to be pondering about how to kill me, but suddenly stopped. He shook his dagger to drop the entire carriage off the cliff. "I will release Julie." This fucking bastard was no knight. He was just a fanatic who had lost his mind in his path of worshipping and admiring only one person, crazy psychopath. "But your choice today? Duck, duck, duck." Blood flowed from my hand holding a sword, the droplets of which hit Veron's forehead. "Will torment Julie for the rest of her life." My mana was already depleted. I was going to do it with my own hands. I was going to kill him. You're a dog who gave up on being a human being." I strengthened my wrist and arms and threw the sword. It burst like an arrow and pierced Veron's neck. Schwack. Now, there was only silence. Even the wind seemed to have stopped raging for a moment. It was as if the sound of the world itself disappeared. Veron quietly let his hand go from the dagger, just like that. He lost the light in his eyes, plunged into the cliff, and finally, his murderous intent was extinguished, not by my death, but his.